Sword of Coming Chapter 974. By Yujing the highest point. The young Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown, lying on the railing, squinted and smiled. Anyway, I am idle. It's better to sit back and watch the world. The sisters on the 12th floor of the 5th city can still follow Xianxia touch the edge. Lu Chen looked at a palace in the high city. Someone over there had received a teaching decree. He had just set off and was ordered to Yufeng to come to the Shangqing pavilion to see Lu Chen. The immortal monarch was already keenly aware of this person's rising trajectory. I am quite envious of this person's fate. After all, being able to board the Shangqing pavilion and overlook the entire 12th floor of the 5 cities is a kind of privilege. Lu Chen waved towards the Xian figure and said with a smile, Junyang Shaon this way. The young Taoist priest landed gently, stood in the corridor respectfully and hit Lu Chen with the chief inspector. Lingbao City Yang Ningxing, pay homage to Master Lu. Lu Chen squinted and waved his hand. I don't want to be free of courtesy or courtesy, just call me the uncle. Since you and Qin Pingon are good friends who are good brothers, then you are close friends with me and there are no outsiders here. Who is polite to show, isn't it the reason? This Yang Ningxing, born in the Yunxiao Palace of the Zhou Xian office of Luzhou Beiju, went down to the Qingming world through the colorful sky and finally reached the sky in one step and then entered by Yujing. He became the named disciple of Brother Yu, and Lingbao City was also Brother Yu. It's a place of proving the Tao, so Yang Ningxing is now practicing in Lingbao City. Yang Ningxing still bowed his head. Don't dare. Lu Chen raised his face and said, Senior nephew, don't do this. It will be boring. It's the student in black who has calculated Qin Pingon twice, more cute. Yang Ningxing raised his head and hesitated. I wonder if Master Lu summoned the younger generation today? Lu Chen smiled and said, There is nothing serious about you, I just want to take you to see the scenery together and do my best as an uncle master. Although Yang Ningxing was at a loss, he did not dare to ask more questions. Lu Chen stretched his fingers together and flicked his fingers at the center of Yang Ning's brows. In a short time the latter's eyes turned golden yellow, and only felt that Yang Ning's dizziness, even if he tried his best to suppress the ripples of Dao Exin and the small world of the human body. With the shocking weather he still couldn't help but shook his head slightly, put the back of his hand against his forehead, and then held the railing with one hand, finally stabilized his figure. Lu Chen smiled and said, Don't be nervous, I opened your eyes temporarily. Can borrow a little vision with Bai Yujing, you will see what I see. Sure enough, as Lu Zhangjiao said, Yang Ningxing found that what he saw right now was Yang Ningxing. Lu Chen turned around and looked at a tall building. Bai Yujing has the reputation of leaning against the clouds and planting green peaches. A group of green lunars soars in the clouds and the Taoist officials are in the forest with a blue face. Lu Chen wanted to see the scenery of the world, in fact it couldn't be simpler. With his own realm and the location of Bai Yujing he could have a panoramic view of the people and scenes of the world, even the details as if they were close at hand. However, it is necessary to find someone specifically to accurately find out the whereabouts of the other person, especially those who are proficient in hiding the secrets of the sky. It is not to say that it is a needle in a haystack. It is not easy to take the initiative, but it is quite difficult and extremely laborious. It's notoriously lazy, and Bai Yujing has a looking-up tower which is dedicated to staring at the movements of a monk on the top of the world. It's just that it's not without omissions. The blindness of the law committee under the world is indeed endless and mysterious. Lu Chen first took a trip to the Lizhu cave and set up a stall in the town for more than 10 years. Not long ago he took a trip to the Great Wall of Sword Qi in the wild world. It seemed to be just a nap plus a blink of an eye. It's becoming more and more ridiculous. After that Yang Ning followed Lu Chen's sight as fast as an arrow, looking down through the layers of clouds, like a swift bird, overlooking the earth, seeing the outline of a continent, then the mountains and rivers winding like dragons and snakes, and then a tower. The majestic city full of dragon luck is ultimately a Qinggu temple built by a royal order. The world combined with the state Qingxin dynasty King Wuguan. The world is getting smaller and bigger. Lu Chen's sight shifted slightly and he smiled and said, The boy from Wuling is here, Jinyu Daochang Daozhong Cave. You must visit this place in the future. The king of rice thief Yunlu Wu Fu Chigu, they all walked out from here. However, Yashang Yaoqing is not in the capital now and has gone to protect the two gods and Taoists Chaoga and Sujun. The Qingxin dynasty is also one of the few places where temples are built, and one of them is hidden. The purple-clothed monk who is very powerful in swordsmanship, that is Jiang Xiu, who is now famous. Xianxia's swordsmanship is so high that he can break his wrist with your master. Xianxia appeared this time. Bai Yujing asked for an explanation. This is Ruzhou Qijin dynasty Yashan. This Qijin dynasty has a Lin master and a Crow Mountain, and its martial arts are prosperous and it is the best in the world. Lin Zhongxian came to our Qingming world as a guest and he didn't know what he wanted to ask for. Hearing this, Yang Ning asked curiously, Master Lu, is this Master Lin, is this an heir trainer? After coming to Qingming world, even in Lingbao city where the Taoist officials are quite arrogant, as long as they talk about Lin Zhongxian they are respected. Lu Chen smiled and said, just to say that in this life, Lin Zhongxian is not a qi practitioner, let alone a sword repairman, but is a swordsman? Zuanduguan's son Dao Cheng, the reason for the saying that ashamed to live before Master Lin, is not only a kind of sympathy but not a word of beauty, but Lin Zhongxian who can indeed fight very well. The rest of the world, together with the woman's martial pay cup in the Howren world, the first in the three worlds and Lin Jiangxian's first, the meaning is not the same. The Qingming world's first forest teacher really can only be first. The gap between the second under heaven and Lin Zhongxian is as big as the Ascension realm and the 15th realm. The gap between Zhang Tiaoxia and Pei Cup is far less exaggerated. Yang Ning asked in doubt, swordsman? Lu Chen nodded, because with or without a long sword in hand, there are two Lin Jiangxians. It's a pity that there are thousands of martial arts practitioners in the Qingming world. No one has the right to let Lin Zhongxian use a sword. Look at this Yuzhou again. Every time it snows here it is always exceptionally heavy. This year is no exception. Snowflakes are almost as big as a fist. The ruins of the ancient battlefield, see it, are you so angry? If it weren't for the Huayang Palace in Daifishan Mountain and the Hongnongyang family, each of them had superiors and guarded one side, they would not hesitate to kill one ascended monk every 1,000 years, and there would have been a turmoil of millions of Yin soldiers. A few years ago the Yang family came out of a peerless beauty who was all over the country, and she was at the age of her 28th birthday. You see, combing her hair under the curtain of water, her lazy sitting posture, beautiful, so beautiful. Look at the post again. The full curvature of the spring stool. And how white the arm that holds the state. Hey, why can't you not really look at her face? Hongnongyang's doing things really is not authentic. This is anti-thief. Yang Ningxing couldn't do such a thing. He closed his eyes but found it was useless at all. He could see what Lu Chen saw. Senior nephew Yang, after listening to the teachings of Uncle as someone who came over, the Taoism will be advanced in the future. Don't do more of this kind of activity. It's too damaging. It's a great taboo in Taoism. Let's take a look at Yongzhou. This is the smallest state in the Qingming world. It is similar to the Aquarius Island in the Howren world. Isn't that interesting? It was once a Taoist place in our continent in the early years, and now there is another fish symbol. In the dynasty, the young female emperor Zhou Xian is building a Putian Taijio. On the top of the mountain in the water, there is a long-standing lotus root temple. The temple is enshrined in the temple, and an old camphor tree outside the temple can be used for divination. The state is lucky and bad. This Zhou Xian is a fickle woman. When she was young she had hanged herself on a hook with Pang Dao for 100 years. She said that she would marry brother Lu when she grew up. Hey, isn't it a good-looking woman who likes to talk like this is not a big deal? Yongzhou Bingjishan, there is a great patriarch Long Xinpu who likes to spread ballads and prophecies the most, but the king and grandson who always likes Xian Duguan, so infatuated he is not at all like a spiritual trainer who proves longevity. This Yongzhou used to be the birthplace of the rice thief's line, but the Taoist officials who were awarded at that time will not be belittled. Why did the rice thief be at its peak when the Taoist officials and those who were able to proceed step by step were destined to teach? The number of alternate Taoist officials in the urn is as many as 1 million, and this is only on the table. Yang Ningxing, do you know what this number means? There are many feathers in Juzhou. Qizhou Zuanduguan. It is also a state that Lu Chen visits most often, a Taoist temple. Yinzhou, Liangjingshan and Daqiazong were married in this way. The Chaoga sister who was re-examined by the Taoist name is really a good match. She has become a wedding dress for others to such a point. She is willing to be alone in Taoism and she does not hesitate to let herself fall forever, just for the possibility of allowing ghosts to cultivate their lives. Taoist companion Su Jun can hopefully take the lead in occupying a place among the 14 realm monks. At the entrance of a heavily forbidden cave in the Dachao sect, Yao Qing suddenly raised his head with a smile on his face and shook his head, as if to remind Master Lu not to peep here. Lu Chen was stunned, suddenly frustrated, jumped and yelled, There are so many strange people and strangers in the world. Is it possible that only the poor Dao will eat and support? In Yuzhou there is a purple-clothed monk who walks in the snow without a trace, chanting loudly, "Talk about Xianxia in the Chao Nu, talk about morality on the futon and don't mention everything." It seemed that the monk had noticed the clues, turned his head and smiled and looked at Bai Yujing. The monk swiped his hand, the sword light between the sky and the earth exploded, cutting off the line of sight on the spot. Lu Chen said in amazement, "Nephew, see you, Zhang Xiu's swordsmanship is very good. Isn't it a well-deserved reputation? Poor Wei depends on people's eyes has always been very accurate. Believe it or not, if Zhang Xiu is doing his best, a sword light can go straight." Bai Yujing? Yang Ning was speechless. A secluded hill with snow-pressed green bamboos. A handsome young man left the Xianxia cave of Xinyue Palace. He chose this place. He was eating a pot of winter bamboo shoots stewed with bacon. Two women were sitting at the table, one of them had dark skin. Don't wear wooden hairpins and straw sandals on your head. The other one is more in line with the appearance of a fairy in the general sense. He wears a green robe and is full of energy. Lu Chen smiled and introduced the identities of the three to Yang Ningxing. The little head teaches Zhang Fenghai Lu Bixiao, and of course it can be said that it is Sanxian Ye Bixiao, and there is also a teacher's line. Zhang Fenghai suddenly put down his chopsticks, wiped the corners of his mouth with his thumb and said with a smile, "Teacher Lu, it has not been seen for many years." After a while Zhang Fenghai picked up the chopsticks again. Obviously that line of sight had been withdrawn. The last scene that Yang Ning saw in his field of vision was Sui Tu Gong Guangkulu. Lu Chen smiled and said, "A literary Gao Ping, scholars talk about military affairs on paper, and the defeated generals dare not speak bravely." Lu Chen sighed, and with a touch of his hand he removed the supernatural power that temporarily borrowed Yang Ning's nature. Breathing water and drinking shanlu, soldiers are sold in the sun and moonlight. Kai Dao Huang, who was hailed as the Moon Old Man, used to be in charge of a marriage book. Lu Chen personally determined one thing in the Lizhu cave. The marriage book that said useful and useless, said useless is extremely useful, has long since been in the hands of the old man who opened the wedding shop in the small town. Not surprisingly, this matter was once again behind the scenes of Old Man Yang, the drugstore. Half of the marriage book had long been in the hands of Lu Qi. The reason why the latter traveled to a foreign land with his friend Chao Zhu and came to Qingming from Haoran. It is very likely that he came to the remaining half of the marriage book. Is that Chaoga? After all, the household registration of this female crown is that of the goddess. Lu Qi's actions in this way are not considered a helpless act for nothing. The most distinctive feature of Lu Qi Ci is the complaint of all lovers in the world who never became their relatives. So trying to use the whole marriage book to draw red lines for lovers in the world indeed fits Lu Qi's avenue. Luopa Mountain Bamboo House, Aquarius Wufu Chui Qing. The old man claimed to be a scholar all his life, and eventually only accepted 2 disciples, both of whom were anonymous. As a result, he accidentally taught boxing and taught him to a limit. Lu Chen sighed. It's not that Wufu is not free, and Chui Qing has long been standing up. The sun rises and the moon sets are all swordsmanship. Lin Jiangxian, his old name is Xiaxinan, but he is also a pseudonym with a hidden head and tail. The real name is probably written on the secret file of the summer palace of the Great Wall of Jianqi. The old hermit official Shao Deng, the new hermit official Chen Pingan. The old criminal officer Hao Su, the new criminal officer Qi Shou. 4,000 of years on the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Among the 3 sword repairmen with official titles, only the sacrificial officials who are still missing and unaware of life and death have always been old and never changed. Seeing that Master Lu was in deep thought, Yang Ning stepped back 3 steps, hit the chief and whispered, "Master Lu, will the juniors leave this place?" Lu Chen returned to his senses and smiled. Together. Holding the railing with one hand, Lu Chen went to the side of Xianxia City. The current lord of Xianxia City is already Jiang Yunxing, who looks like a little Taoist boy. The former city lord, Yao Kejio, was named Near Ancient, but he finally failed to return to his hometown. A good flower is like an old man, and a cup is empty without drinking, but unfortunately an old man is not like a flower. On the head of the city in his hometown, there was a young Jianxiu named Fong Ai who picked up the whisked wooden handle left by Yao Kejio. Only he and Dong Huafu chose to stay in the Xianxia city on the 12th floor of the 5 cities. The other 7 sword repairmen scattered into the remaining towers of Bai Yujing, and soon became official Taoists, each with their own ancestors. This wooden handle is Yao Qijia's only relic. Lu Chen sees old things as he sees old people. So I often come to Xianxia City to find the young man to drink. Today Fang Ai pours the wine on the wine table, insisting that Master Lu, who had a blushing face, drink an extra bowl. Master Lu held the wine glass in both hands, turned his head and kept saying, "Don't pour the wine, you can't drink it, you will be drunk if you drink it again, don't, it's enough. Come on, come and go, no matter how slow you pour the wine it will be full." Dong Huafu came here today to have a drink. Lu Chen's drink is worth some money. As for Fang Ai and Lu Chen's pouring and blocking of wine, Dong Huafu is not surprised, and the two often show such virtues. Probably like Qin Pingon said back then, not persuading you to drink, it's so boring and not lively. Of course this is because the wine shop was opened by Qin Pingon and Dai Zhang, and the wine table is not too much to persuade wine, so how can the sales of wine be good? Lu Chen looked down at the full wine bowl, sighed, raised his head and complained, "Look, it's full again, don't do this next time or I won't come next time." Fang Ai nodded and smiled. Let's not take this as an example. When he first arrived at Xianxia City, Fang Ai was still a genuine young man. Lu Chen took a sip of his drink, shivered and squinted quickly. Good wine, good wine. Lu Chen tilted Erlang's legs, leaned against the stone table and asked, "Fang Ai, do you want to sit on the top spot in Xianxia City in the future?" Fang Ai said, "Become the deputy city lord first." The implication is that of course I want to be the lord of the city. As a city lord there must be no shortage of immortal money. Sword cultivation is generally regarded as a bottomless pit, and all the treasures that are consumed can pile up into mountains. However, Jiang Yunxing has only become the lord of Xianxia City for a few years. Generally speaking, according to Bai Yujing's old example, this means that the lord of the city will not be changed for hundreds of years and thousands of years, but he is the deputy lord. Still a little hopeful, there is not such a luo as the lord of the city. Bu a whole, not to mention that as long as the reason is sufficient, the two head teachers can nod at the same time, it is not impossible to temporarily purchase. Lu Chen liked Fang Ai's point. He wanted to say what he wanted, not hypocritical, and asked with a smile, "Pan Dao has a trick, do you want to listen?" Fang Ai hurried to toast and walked one by himself. Lu Chen had a mysterious face, gritted his teeth, only one word popped out, "Boil." Fang Ai twitched the corners of his mouth. "Zhang Lu teaches you that this is not nonsense. If I can survive a Taoist age of 3 to 5,000 years by Yujing's 5th city on the 12th floor, how can I not be the city lord or the landlord? If you really want to be sincere, let me go to the South China city where Zhang Lu teaches you and become a deputy city lord." Lu Chen asked, "Will you miss your hometown?" Fang Ai said truthfully, "Occasionally." Lu Chen seemed to be surprised and smiled. "Is it only occasionally?" Young Jianxiu nodded and said, "It's only occasionally. I don't miss it often, but every time I think about it occasionally, I miss it very much." Lu Chen patted the desk lightly with his palm. "Yes, this kind of miss is called homesickness. Brother Yu is like Qin Pingon, who has been to Shujian Lake but never stayed in Shujian Lake. No quagmire of people's hearts can hold you do. It used to be so and it must be in the future." Lu Chen used to be the younger brother of the Taoist named Shanqing, drawing on the gourd and learning how to embroider tigers, and set up a questioning situation similar to that of Shijianhu. It's a pity that Shanqing gave the answer sheet. In Lu Chen's eyes, it looked unconscionable. It was neither like Brother Yu nor Qin Pingon. This made Lu Chen disappointed, but after all he personally led Bai Yujing into the gate of Bai Yujing. If he didn't, he just let it go, so Shanqing, the little junior, was thrown into the colorful world by Lu Chen. Lu Chen put down the wine bowl, put one hand on the table, stretched his legs and knocked on each other lightly with his shoes, looking extremely bored. Dong Huafu asked, "Jiaozhong, in the city, everyone said that the real white bone person who entered the candidate is one of your clones?" Lu Chen immediately sat upright, shaking his clothes with a solemn expression and said in a deep voice, "Isn't it?" Dong Huafu said, "Then can you beat Yu Do?" Lu Chen hurriedly took a sip of the wine and waved his hand quickly. "I can't beat it, I can't beat it. Brother Yu is really invincible and it's not a name. Everyone is in the middle of the rivers and lakes. Since they are in the rivers and lakes they can only take it. Wrong name, never give the wrong nickname." Dong Huafu asked, "Is Master Lu a sword repairer?" Lu Chen thought for a while. He was half of his own family and he frankly told him, reaching out his hand to block his lips, "Pan Dao swordsmanship is not pure enough, it can't be regarded as a real sword repair. Dong Huafu asked again. In addition to the real man among the 20 or so candidates, is there a clone of Lu Zhangjiao? Lu Chen smiled and said, guess. His mother Peng Dao really can't answer any more questions. If Dong Haitan continues to question him like this, he will completely expose himself. At this moment, a woman in a palace costume came over, smiling, her eyes filled with tears, and she muttered, "Heartless man, heartbroken, okay?" Lu Chen glanced at the woman, jumped up and started yelling at the other party for being too wicked, with his hands on his hips, spitting, and the drink was considered for nothing. It's just that Lu Chen's curse words are some old sayings that Dong Huafu and Fong Ai can't understand. The woman stopped and stretched out her hand towards Lu Chen, her face full of sorrow. "Lu Lang, I have nothing to ask for, I just want to return my heart." Lu Chen waved his sleeves. "Stop making trouble." The woman changed body shape accordingly, which was described by an old Taoist priest. Fong Ai was taken aback as if it was Dao Zhu. Inside the Patriarch Hall of Xianxia City, there are statues on the wall that I have seen. Lu Chen rolled his eyes and said, "I don't know whether to live or die." So the old Taoist became a middle-aged Taoist again. Lu Chen sighed, "If you want to fight, it's up to you." It's just that Lu Chen quickly added another sentence. "Poverty Dao will pull senior brother you again." In the end, this person, turned into a dull youth, wanted to get a drink, but it walked beyond the abbot of the stone table, and it seemed to have encountered an invisible wall. It bends its fingers, knocked on the barrier and nodded. Said, "Lu Chen really is proficient in Buddhism." Lu Chen reminded, "Don't get into an inch." It nodded and said, "It's easy to say. A cultivator wants to maintain his original mind, just as a ghost maintains a little truthfulness and aura. People, ghosts, or immortals are just like a flat boat sailing across the sea. There must be a ballast stone which serves as a Tao-centered pin on the sea. In layman's terms, it is a kind of obsession. And in accordance with the mental method handed down by the first Taoist in the world, this natural nature is maintained, and several Tao veins of the same origin and different flow are extended. And this transformation heavenly demon, the roots and feet of the great Tao, to a certain extent, is that Taoist or some kind of shadow, put together by all the Taoists. Wanyan dark room, a fuel-efficient lamp. It smiled and said, "You guys are talking about you." Lu Chen nodded and said, "Let's continue." Fong Ai's heartstrings tightened, or Dong Wafa's heart was big, and continued to ask, "There is a catch-and-release pavilion on the upside-down mountain, and the upside-down mountain is the mark of Yudo's mountain. It's only a few steps away, why don't you take the sword?" Great Wall of Qi? Hearing this question, Fong Ai also pricked his ears, waiting for Lu Shen's answer. The implication of Dong Wafa's words is very simple. Since it is really invincible, why don't you go to the Great Wall of Jianqi and find the old sword fairy to fight? If you win, who dares to deny your nickname? Lu Chen hurriedly poured himself a bowl of wine. He had to be shocked first. This question was difficult to answer. How does Dong Haitan always ask such tricky problems? Lu Chen sips the wine slowly, feeling that one sip can be drunk for a day. Dong Huafu said, "Since I don't want to answer, just drink." Lu Chen sighed and said, "It's embarrassing for the boss to join Dao Jianqi Great Wall." Fong Ai interrupted and asked, "Master, you thinks that if you ask the sword over there, it won't take advantage of the land and you will suffer?" Lu Chen shook his head, "It's not a matter that you don't suffer. Brother you can't beat him, he will definitely lose. But Brother you is not afraid of losing, so he doesn't go to the Great Wall of Jianqi. If you misunderstand this way, then you will be underestimating Senior Brother you. Senior Brother you in this life, all he asks for is to lose a word. Have a good fight and I will accept a loser. It's just that once Senior Brother you lets go of his hands and feet and really asks the sword with the boss, the consequences will be too great and the implications are too wide." Dong Huafu asked, "Could you be able to cut through the city wall with one sword?" Lu Chen shook his head, "I can't do it. The great ancestor Tueshan was able to do this because Qin Qing had to hand out that sword to help Fei Xingcheng go to Wuxia world. Just by looking at several sword celestial beings migrating together for a round of bright moon and bright colors, you know how difficult this kind of move across the world is. Qin Qing did this under the eyelids of the wild demon race. It was not that Jiazi account didn't consider and deduced it. After all, it was the same result and couldn't stop it. Whoever stopped and died was probably the only exception to the great ancestor Tuo Yueshan, who was careful with Wen Hai. But these two each have a longer-term plan. Impossible to shoot and Qin directly head-on. Just like the swordsman in the world, the highest swordsman in swordsmanship standing on tiptoes, can only reach Qin's shoulders. How to fight this and how to ask the sword. Dong Huafu hesitated as if guessing what Dong Huafu was thinking. Lu Chen smiled and said, "That person, this is a good question. Among the 10,000 years ago there was a sword repairman. In the past this man's long swordsmanship, high swordsmanship, great lethality, strong defense, many and good ranks of flying swords in his life, are all most characters." Lu Chen turned his lips toward the outer transformation demon who was pestering outside the restriction, indicating that the servant had witnessed the sword style of the one with his own eyes. There were 3 main routes in the Battle of Ascending to the Sky that year, and this sword repairer was responsible for leading one road. It smiled and said, "It's still dead." Lu Chen rolled his eyes and said, Hey, be careful, speak more politely." It smiled and asked, "Do you want to see that picture scroll?" Lu Chen stood up, "Walk together." It shook its head, its figure gradually dissipated and sarcastically said, "Lu Chen, the mud bodhisattva crosses the river, so let's do it yourself." In the remote area of Yuzhou, there is a small Taoist temple named Suxiguan in the county seat. With a breeze, a young Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown appeared out of thin air on the street. The unknown Taoist temple in front of him was naturally gone, leaving only an empty shelf as a display. Lu Chen looked up at the small Taoist temple. The plaque, the surplus and the vacancy, take the excess to make up for the deficiencies. Not bad, a bit of knowledge at first glance. It is the handwriting of oneself, holding the way of surplus and damaging it so as to avoid the regret of the dragon and the sorrow of the universe. Good meaning, good omen. Lu Chen laughed at himself. It's just a step slower. With a stomped foot, Lu Chen shook his sleeves, raised his hand, pinched his fingers and began to curse. Old Gao, a lot of age, why bother to swim in the muddy water? I'm really not afraid of the late festival. You wait. It's best to hide in Huayang Palace as a head-shrinking tortoise. Don't be found out of the mountain by the trail, otherwise you have to spray your face with spitting stars. Hey, you're really out of the mountain, Old Gao, you are high enough. I really look down on the trails, good guys, one by one. You bully the trails and have a good temper. If you have the ability to fight with brother, you just pick up the soft persimmons. What a hero. Mao Jue, Taoist official of Zhushuguan, has no Dao name for the time being, and once served as a patron of Xiao Guangguan's food. Just a cook, still a master chef. In fact, the 20-odd figures in the Taoist temple and even the Taoist temple itself were made by this true white bone man. In this way, it is possible to cross the sea without hiding the sky and pass the customs in a foolish manner. So now the county government is noisy, and the county city dare not conceal the slightest. It has already been reported to the court. I believe that it will not be long before Bai Yujing will receive a purple mud seal secret letter. There is such a big event in the jurisdiction, and it is necessary to stab Lozi if it is handled carelessly. The Daoist master who had a formal Taoist statement just disappeared. How could there be such a strange thing? Lu Chen glanced sideways. The book stalls on the street outside the Taoist temple had no time to take them away. As for the books, they were all emptied, probably belonging to the children. It's like leaving a letter deliberately or a letter sent to you by yourself. Anyway, it was full of some kind of unfriendly sarcasm. Master Lu was annoyed and he was mad at himself, and there was no way to find outsiders to him off. In the heavy snow season, a flat boat stopped in the middle of the slow water, and someone on the bow was wearing a hat and cloth. The angler was a handsome young Taoist priest. He wore a turban with a hard-brimmed round hat and ran a bun with a boxwood hairpin. Someone fell from the sky, but the speed of the fall was extremely slow, like snowflakes swaying, just falling by the bow of the ship, spreading his palm wrapped in oil paper with sauce and a few garlic cloves. The uninvited guest dropped a garlic clove in his mouth, moved a little bit and walked behind the angler, raised his foot and pointed it at the back of the fisherman's head, as if he was about to give him a kick. It's just that the leg swayed for a long time and didn't dare to get out of the foot. He took another piece of sauce and threw it into his mouth. The leg fell gently and vaguely said, "Lao Gao, this is not suitable, right?" The Taoist priest who had been staring at that fishing line said calmly, "Why did Master Lu say this?" Lu Chen angrily said, "Ask you knowingly, I like to pretend to be stupid and play rogues with the poor road, right? Adopt a teacher first." The young Taoist twitched at the corner of his mouth. Lu Chen's most annoying expression on this guy was that he had to be respected and approachable, but he didn't see many of them all over the world. Xuantaguansun is like that, after all, it is rare, and the old man in front of him is not good. He has a stinky face all year round. Lu Chen squatted down and moved his palm. The man said, "No, I'm afraid of poisoning." Lu Chen said angrily, "Why don't you say that you got the aphrodisiac?" The guy simply pretended to be deaf and dumb. Lu Chen asked, "Did that guy hide in your Huayong Palace ancestor cave? I don't understand what Master Lu is saying. It's too wicked to do this kind of business secretly." "Well, why does Master Lu want to scold Daozu?" "What do you mean?" The poor Earth Lung Mountain is not thin on Bai Yujing's credit book. It should be several pages long. If poor Dao is lacking in virtue, there are few who dare to claim that they are not lacking in virtue in this Qingming world. It can be seen that your Bai Yujing's efforts in enlightenment are worrying, so the Master Lu, who has been in charge of this world for more than 10,000 years, has taken care of what? The truth can be said like this. Old Gao, you are tall. Zhang Lu is a strange man who speaks loudly, not knowing what to say. Took so much to chat. Lu Chen pursed his butt, craned his neck and glanced at the fish basket. The fish basket fell into the water. Lu Chen wanted to reach out and pull the rope. However, the young Taoist warned him that he was hot and had to give up. "Old Gao, are you fishing?" "Hold it. Apart from the small fish with fine chopsticks, is there a big fish?" "Then there will be no big fish. Empty bait, maybe even the fishing rod was torn off and it hurt the angler's bones. In case the whole boat is overturned by a big fish, why bother, why bother? Pan Dao is willing to try it. Is the big fish invincible or the line is tough enough? By the way, try the hook and see if it can break the skin of the big fish's mouth." Lu Chen looked sad and whispered, "Old Gao, listen to a word of advice, don't do this, really, trust me once." The young Taoist priest also rarely showed a strange look. He was silent for a moment and said, "Lu Chen, when you are a friend, I waited for you on purpose here just to chat for a few words, not to listen to your persuasion. Can you next say something that doesn't mean anything?" Lu Chen's legs hung out of the boat. Except for the garlic cloves in the sauce, he didn't move for a while. When he finished eating, he clapped his hands, wiped the greasy palms on the boat board and asked, "Gao Gu, you guys, what do you think? I'm really not afraid that senior brother you would travel far away with his sword, come to the door and drop his head on the ground with a sword?" This Gao Gu, ascended to perfection, is recognized as the #1 alchemy person in the world, and one of the 10 people in the Qingming world. He is also one of the most promising monks in the world to be among the 14th realms. After that incident happened that year, this young Taoist official stood on the border of Bai Yujing, looking at Bai Yujing from a distance. It's a kind of feeling that no matter who is looking at him a little bit, it will be more permeating silent eyes. Ruthless people often don't talk much. Besides, after so many years, Gao Gu is definitely not the kind of person who is willing to bring hatred into the coffin. Sure enough, Gao Gu nodded and said in a calm tone, "Earth Lung Mountain Huayong Palace, dreaming of dreams, waiting for the poor road. Waiting for this day, waiting for a long time, a long time." Lu Chen knew that Gao Gu's true reliance was not only that his cultivation level was high enough, the hills were big enough, and his disciples and grandchildren spread all over the continent. The biggest dependence is that the world is like a big net. All the grievances and hatreds are knots. Some knots will gradually decay and disappear with the passage of time. However, some dead knots will only become more and more tense and tough, so they are more and more able to hold one. Activating the whole body, the Lotus Root Shrine is just one of them, so is the Youth Cave at Sui Chu Gong, and even Gao Gu is. Now it's up to whoever will be the first to push the wall. Gao Gu, Sun Huaizhong, Xinjiang. Bai Yujing's genealogy and Taoist officials are indeed countless. They are just 1,000 feet of red dust. Deep in the dust, the Taoist heart is dusted, especially when the war spreads across the world. Killings are everywhere. The Taoist officials take action, damage the Yin virtue, either wound or die and lose countless. Pan Dao is something. Gao Gu smiled and said, "Let's live up to the mad fame for 3,000 years. Ruthless people swear words, never have to look ferocious, it's always so calm." Lu Chen sighed. "Lao Gao, as a friend, I have to persuade you, but you can't be angry. Practicing in the mountains, the longer you live, the longer you are, and the fewer friends you have." Gao Gu's young disciple, born in the Hongnong Yang family, is also Gao Gu's most respected and beloved direct descendant. The reason why he valued it was his cultivating aptitude, literary and military strategy, Of course he was very outstanding, and even more because of his temperament. In Gao Gu's eyes he was the most self-like. The old palace master, who has been innocent and has no children all his life, treats this little disciple as if he were himself. Lu Chen stretched out 3 fingers. Somewhere in Bai Yujing, I have roughly calculated that you will not exceed 30%. Gao Gu smiled and said, so much? Surprised joy. Lu Chen fell back and lay on the bough with his hands as pillows, watching the flying snow in the sky. Gao Gu said, Lu Chen. Okay. There must be more fighting in the world and there must be no land in the world. I thank you. Then give the poor Dao 3 knocks? Lu Chen closed his eyes, mumbling on his mouth. Gao Gu stretched out a hand and lightly patted Lu Chen's sleeve robe. Don't be sad. In the wind and snow a group of 3 walked on foot. The first person is a middle-aged female crown who can't see the dynastic lineage by dress alone, and is surrounded by a pair of young girls. She is one of the candidates in the Qingming world, Ascending Realm Sword Repair Treasure Scale Ghost Fairy. The Taoist officials in the Qingming world need to dress according to the rules every time the law is fasted. There must not be the slightest overstepping. They're just going out and traveling. Except for some strange personal preferences, they are often like treasure scales. Wearing a travel crown on the head and walking on a cloud shoe is the most common Taoist attire. This is the rule appointed by the Taoist ancestors to encourage the monks to cultivate the morality and purify all of them. Baolin has newly acquired 2 direct disciples, both of which are Xianxia, a pair of young girls like Biren named Lu Yi Qiuyui. Lu Yi asked curiously, Master, since I'm going to ask the old man about the sword, it seems that the direction is wrong. Baolin said, I have to meet a monk first. The 2 disciples looked at each other. In this azure world, what would a Taoist priest ask a monk to do? It's just that they think about it again. It doesn't matter who the master is, even the Taoist second child and Bai Yujing don't pay attention to it. Lu Yi asked, Master, after seeing that monk, the 3 of our masters and apprentices are going to Bai Yujing, right? Baolin was non-committal, smiling without saying a word. Lu Yi became more and more panicked. Is it possible that the master wants to escape into the empty door? Baolin smiled and said, Don't think about it, master is just reminiscing with the old. Qiuyui asked cautiously, Master, can you ask Bai Yujing about the sword? The teenager quickly coughed to remind the junior sister not to open or lift witch pot. Baolin wasn't angry and said, In the eyes of outsiders, of course I am asking for trouble, but in my own view, it is something I can't avoid. The world is impermanent and ping-zong gathers and disperses. There are those who get together and meet again, and there are those who end up sadly. The second head of Bai Yujing, Yudo, once met 3 close friends at the end of the day, practiced together and climbed high together. To share adversity and prosperity together, proving the path of longevity together. The true words of one heart, the friend of life and death. The 4 best friends within 1,000 years, protected each other and ascended one after another. In addition to Yudo, there is also a great master of Fulu, a pair of Taoists, and a beautiful family of gods, namely Jianxiu and Formation Master. Lu Changzhou, once known as a filthy Taoist, is now Jiang Zhaomo in Zikalu. Xing Lu Zhenshi, Taoist name Tianqi. Baolin Jianxiu. Travel with friends and travel the world. The 4 ascended realm great monks are so energetic one can imagine. In the end, only Yudo entered Bai Yujing. At that time, Bai Yujing was not as large as the 12th floor of the 5 cities, only the 6th floor of the 3 cities. Yudo's true invincible nickname was passed down during those years. This nickname, which is more famous than Yudo Dao, was certainly not self-proclaimed by Yudo, but Yudo was never too lazy to deny it. From the Ascension realm, I want to be a higher level among the 14 realms. It is not only a difficulty but also a concern. The great monk wanted to cross the sky and couldn't strive for it. Just look at Daoist. It may be available at your fingertips, and it may be more difficult than reaching the sky. In the end, both Lu Changzhou and Xing Lu died under Yudo Jian. Therefore, every time Baolin retreats to refine his sword and every time he leaves the customs, he will go straight to Bai Yujing, lose with Yu Duenjian, and then go to retreat. For thousands of years she has asked Jian many times. The whole world knows that she will lose without a doubt, even I am afraid she knows it well, but it seems that there is nothing else to do except this. Just to seek revenge with Yudo. She has an obsession. Everyone in the world can kill Xing Lu, but you can't kill it. Because her Taoist companion Xing Lu is a fellow villager with Yudo. It can even be said that Xing Lu was Yudo's first leader. In the subsequent road repairs it was for Yudou. Xinglu fell twice. It hurts the fundamentals of the avenue, which made Xinglu try to break the bottleneck of the Ascension realm, and was dragged by the heart demon to the outer heaven demon, and a treasure on the mountain that originally belonged to Xinglu had long been given to Yudou Dalian. If it weren't for this destiny, even if it didn't break the boundary, it would definitely not get into trouble during the retreat. Can be said that there was no Xinglu, Yudou would have died a long time ago and there would be no later Bai Yujing's second master. Is really invincible. Baolin walked slowly, reaching out to catch the snow falling on his palm. Lost the building in the fog, the moon is lost in the sky, the past is empty like a dream. I'm still there, deep in the chaotic mountains. Deadwood can still be in spring and old trees can still bloom. Where's the old man? Wu Shuangjiang is right to do something truly meaningful. It takes 3 extremely powerful 14th level monks, and they don't care about life and death and are ready to go and have no return, and then ask Jian Bai Yujing together so that it is possible for Yudou to really suffer. When Wu Shuangjiang found her back then, Baolin could only smile at that time. Where can I find 3 14th level monks? This time I return to the end of the palace retreat and I will do it. Where are the other 2? Regardless of that obsession, Baolin didn't lack self-knowledge. Swordsmanship in the world can be viewed at a higher level because facing other Qi practitioners, they are recognized as invincible in the same realm. Even if there are occasional exceptions, they are only exceptions. Only one ascended realm swordsman can't count like this. Wu Shuangjiang smiled and said, "This is not something you need to be distracted. Baolin, don't worry about giving me an answer." After all, letting a pure sword repairman join hands with an outsider to ask Jian Bai Yujing, it is like a conspiracy after all, it goes against the original heart. When you really figure it out, you will come to me again next year. You and Yudou, now the mortal enemy is the mortal enemy, the old friend is still the old friend. If you don't think about this, don't agree to it. Baolin said solemnly, "Yes. That's it. When I retreat and leave, I will go to Sui Tu Gong." Wu Shuangjiang shook his head. "I didn't think about it at first glance. Go back and think slowly. I don't want to find an ally who will temporarily turn around on the battlefield." At that time Wu Shuangjiang showed a slightly sarcasm and narrow look, that kind of expression like saying you can be arrogant but don't treat me as a fool. Yongzhou border. There is a lotus root temple at the bottom of the water in Dadu, and there is an old camphor tree outside the temple with black foxes and black apes, and the camphor tree is used as a dojo. Excellent shrine. A young Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown gave a secret praise, then bowed his head and bowed his waist sneakily, trying to sneak across Huilong Bridge. As a result, above the old camphor tree, the black fox and the black ape stood on the branch and began to spit at the Taoist priest. They were on the bridge back then and encouraged them to make a bet. Of course, they seemed to win and lose the bet. It does not delay their ascent of their spiritual realm, but they have not been able to successfully refine their shapes so far, which has caused them to become a big joke in the neighboring states. Obviously they are 2 cultivators from the Jade Pure realm. As a result, they still dare not leave the Lotus Root Temple boundary and travel far away. The reason is not because they are afraid of being beaten to death but because they are afraid of being laughed at. While dodging around, the young Taoist laughed loudly, "Hey, can't fight, hey," dodge again out of breath. Suddenly began to curse, "Don't talk about justice, no martial arts, hidden weapons hurt people. Your uncle, what a thick sputum." The young Taoist priest straightened up his waist, tossed around, jumped up, handed his fists to the sky, and dispelled the spit that was as fast as an arrow. Ruzhou is a small country. Yingchuan County, Suian County, Lingjing View. At the end of the year it will soon be the new year, and as a result, there is another heavy snowfall of goose feathers, and the earth is covered in silver. The small Taoist temple still has a taste of the year. The characters of blessing and the spring couplets and the painted spiritual official door gods are posted. Now the old temple has just stepped down, and the new temple has not yet taken office. The temple wish Lu Feng dare not come to the Taoist temple to show up recently. It was Chang Gung who was busy here with a few resident Taoists who were young and did not teach urns. On this day Chang Gung boarded the drum tower and beat the mu drum on time. He returned to the room adjacent to the stove, turned on the oil lamp, took out a small wooden box from under the bed, took out a cotton cloth package, placed it on the table and opened it. It was a lot of bamboo objects. Chin Song knocked on the door. Chang Gung said nothing. The boy opened and closed the door. He sat at the table and asked curiously, Uncle Chong, what are these? Chong Gung smiled and said, commonly known as junzi. Chin Song questioned, what? Chong Gung explained, going up and down the bamboo, the meaning is the same as calculate, plan to calculate. It is 6 inches long, counts the calendar, and the 6 goblets are in one grip. There are a lot of them. If you are free, you can count by yourself. Pieces. Chin Song was too lazy to determine the number and just asked, is it the word chip for strategizing? Chong Gung smiled and nodded. Chin Song put his hands on the table with his hands interlaced, looked up the bamboo chips with the yellow light and said, Bo Chong, do you have any ideas? Chong Gung hummed, heaven and earth saints are like iron mountains and stone pillars? He replied, such as making money, although ruthless, those who are lucky are affectionate. Chin Song thought for a while, shook his head and said, I still don't understand. Chin Song knew that Uncle Chang's stomach was full of ink and he knew everything and he would inevitably get a little bit of acid in his speech. It's just that bad luck and the family's dysphoria have fallen into such a field. Probably this is the so-called 100. Useless as a scholar. It's just a lot of things. Chin Song wants to get to the bottom of Chongbo, but he doesn't just know what it is. You have to ask why, such as Chongbo, which book do you learn from, and whether you have a chance to work in a market bookstore in the future. When I bought it, Chongbo would occasionally report some book titles. Most of the time he said that reading was too complicated and he was too old to remember. Seeing Uncle Chong playing around with bamboo chips, often separating and gathering together, Chin Song was not too interested, so he didn't bother to remember it. He just said casually, Uncle Chong, Hongguanju is actually a good person, although on weekdays there is no such thing as a good face, but it's hard for us to treat us so badly. It's hard to speak so well for the next observer, right? Will the new observer deny the old account, write off the old account, just write it off and then just look for it? For the first reason, rush us to leave the Taoist temple? After all, in a Taoist temple, the status of a resident Taoist, who has no Taoist slogan, is still a sweet potato. I don't know how many people are greedy, a carrot and a pit, everyone wants to share a cup of soup. In the early years, including the Master Hong Miao, there were only 6 resident Taoists, because Lu Fong, who was nominally a temple blessing person, did not live on the mountain. Chong Gung smiled and said, if you take one step and count as one step, the boat will go straight to the bridgehead. Chin Song said helplessly, said it doesn't mean not saying it. Chong Gung said, then add a sentence, don't ask about the harvest or the hard work and don't stand by when things happen. The teenager was more annoyed with these old-styled ideas lying on the table. Chong Gung smiled and said, sit and not sit, stand and not stand. Chin Song was silent for a long time and said, Uncle Chong, I actually like it here. Chong Gung said, the place is small and the scenery is good. There is a sentence in the book which is very suitable for the scene. Songguan Qingshi left and right the tree, and the gods and immortals planted flowers. Chin Song smiled and asked, Uncle Chong, I can't remember which book it is, right? Isn't that considered old and forgetful? Chong Gung said, it's not big or small. The young man laughed and said, then I will add one more sentence, I will always be healthy and worry-free. Chong Gung raised his eyes slightly, looked at the young man with clear brows and smiled, but it didn't change much. Chin Song asked, Uncle Chong, are you still engraving your seal recently? If there is a new one, show me a look. Chong Gung shook his head and said, small tricks do not take proper business. Which one counts as a righteous career? Get fame and become an official at a yamen? Or give a censor, practice immortal law and be a fairy master? If you need to seek seals from outside India, you should seek Taoism on the road. Immortal techniques are no more than a skill in the body, only the cultivation of morality and virtue is the first juncture. Chin Song sighed and gave a thumbs up. Uncle Chong, reason and empty talk, you are this. Chong Gung shook his head and cursed a little brat with a smile. Chin Song said positively, Uncle Chong, I'm really not joking with you. When I have money in my pocket someday, it will not be difficult to collect the seal and help you get the stamp, but I can sell a few copies. I don't make a guarantee. Chong Gung asked, do you like seals so much? The young man thought for a while, nodded and lay down on the table again. Like it, the bottom of a seal and the words are gathered together like a family reunion. Sort of coming. Chapter 975. Sorry for the late upload. In the night, Fengyuan ferry slowly docked at the beaching ferry of Yuguazong, this famous Xianxia ferry. The mountains are warm and the water is soft, The lake is like a mirror, the moonlight is on the ground and the lights are floating in the sky. On the ferry side, everyone walked out of the cabin to enjoy the view, and divided into two groups. One was Miyu with Zhou Mili Zhang Lu Changming with his direct disciple Nalan Yu, and the other was Wei Wenlong with Tao Ran and Xiaoxian. Wait for the group. Nalan Yu smiled and said, Mi de Xianxian, looking at this beautiful scenery, don't you have the idea of reciting a poem? The children born and bred in the Great Wall of Sword Qi on Mayu's side speak more casually. Nalan Yu is considered polite, and now she is hiding in the Yuan dynasty of the Han Palace in Feishing City. People of the same age fly paper kites at the head of the city, and they are more familiar with Miyu, who likes to lie on Yunxia and admire the moon while drunk. Miyu smiled and asked back. Master Yingguan suggested that you join Bai Xian and King Sun Chun to refine swords and break through the realm at the Dongtian dojo. Why didn't you agree to come down? When this group of people and children enter the cave state one after another, everyone will be able to travel far away in the wind. Lord Yingguan has long-term plans. For example, Luopa Mountain will join hands with Qingping Sword Sect to fight for this group of sword fairy embryos. For example, going to the Dadu estuary in the middle of Aquarius Island, or the Denglong Tai in the Old Dragon City, and practicing for a period of time, just waiting for the sun to rise and the moon to set every day, and then climb high and look into the distance. Broaden your horizons, cultivate your sword intent, clear your sword heart, and then wait for each of them to enter the Sevuing realm, then go to Baidi City in the Middle Earth Divine Continent to see the waterfalls and rivers pouring down from the Yellow River Cave, and look at the Dragon Gate. With the incense relationship between Lord Yingguan and Lao Longqing Yunlin Jiangs and Beidasheng, these things are all trivial matters. Nalan Yu twitched the corners of his mouth and gave an honest reason. Master can't bear me, I can't bear Master. Changming smiled slightly and rubbed the little girl's head. I'm reluctant. There are thousands of roads to practice swordsmanship, and Chongqing doesn't think that Nalan Yu must stay in Xindu Mountain. She has her own means to make this eldest disciple's kendo achievement equal to that of her peers. Of course, Chai Wu is an exception. Miyu remembered the incident and said, Nalan Saihuan is now the new suzerain of the Rain Dragon sect. So I have time to visit relatives? I can accompany you to travel across the sea. I heard that there is a reed flower in a cave of good fortune. Island, the moonlight is also extremely beautiful. In terms of seniority, do you have to call Nalan Saihuan a grandmother? Among the 9 sword immortal embryos, even the fools could see that the hidden officer was the most distressed to Nalan Yu and Yao Xiaoyan, a small accountant and a little confused, but he was not partial to the matter. Bai Chengdu is the leading big ferry in the south of Tonggishao. It is said to be a ferry, but it is no less than a county town. After years of careful construction by craftsmen on the mountain, it has been repaired as new. The ferry is mostly planted with immortal plants and trees, and it is evergreen in all seasons. Coupled with the stone used to build the Bai Chengdu building, it is almost green and glazed. More than 30 ferries docked at Bai Chengdu at the same time, which itself is a manifestation of the heritage of the sect. Wei Wenlong sighed. Without more than 100 years, it would be difficult for King Shangdu to reach the scale of Bai Chengdu. Xiaoxian overlooked the ferry, the lights were brilliant, the street was bright as day, there was a lot of traffic coming and going. In the final analysis, it was nothing more than people and money, said. The most difficult thing to gather is popularity, especially when it comes to money and credit, Yu Guizhong. It is the well-deserved top spot of Tong Yezhou. Compared with our Qingping sword sect, there is still a big gap. This is normal. With the support of the upper sect and the management of sect master Cui, it is not that there are no latecomers. Possible. Xiaoxi and Hui disembarked on the Rin River on the way back from Fengyuan Ferry. This time, in addition to taking a large amount of Guyu money from the Zhongmen treasury, Cui Dongshan also gave him more than 10 pieces in private. The treasures on the mountain used to gather the mountains, rivers and air, and the establishment of the country and Fengchan have become clear. Everything is difficult at the beginning. With this fairy money and magic treasures, it will not be too stretched, and the money must be returned, not counting interest. That's it. As for the debt of human kindness, in fact I have already owed 3 debts. I fled all the way back then and finally took refuge in Luopao Mountain. It was a sum to help establish a country on the Rin River in a foreign land, and it can also be regarded as the restoration of the old Zhuing dynasty in Aquarius Island. Guizhou is the second one. Next, Wu Yi, the founder of Xiang Mansion, brought a group of direct descendants. She is willing to take the initiative to serve as a real person to protect the country, which is another big debt of gratitude. Wei Wenlong said, originally belonged to Tongye sect, large and small, with dozens or hundreds of fortunes, except for those few lifelines which were reluctantly in Tongye sect's hands, and almost all the rest took the initiative to run to Jade Guizhong. Here. Xiao Poxian smiled and said, so there is still a vision in the Confucian temple. Let the abbot of Zhou Xian be the Wuxia Academy, lest the Yuguizhong form a dominant pattern. Wei Wenlong has a stable personality, and it is rare to have friends with people other than young hidden officials. He smiled and said, Xiao Feng, you are now a swordsman in the Yuan Ingjing realm. When Dugu Menglong establishes a country, if you can rank in the 5 realms, you will also be the founder of a sect. The meaning in the title is that at that time, one country and one sect will support each other, and it will definitely not be difficult to gain a firm foothold in Tongyi's Hao. The future can be expected, and I wish Xiao Engong every success. Xiao Poxian clenched his fists and thanked. If there is such a day, I will invite Mr. Wei to drink. The woman now renamed Dugu Menglong, the future emperor of the new kingdom. Although probably because she has known Shan Zhuchen for a long time, she does not appear to be very enthusiastic and attentive on Qin Pingan's side, but she follows her true identity. Xiao Poxian, the prince of the fallen country, lived together on Luopa Mountain for a long time. Even though she did not meet the accountant from Chunfan's High in the inverted mountain, she did not meet many times, but she was close to each other. Now when she heard the words, she also clasped her fists and said sincere thanks. Thanks Mr. Wei for taking care of him a lot over the years. Welcome Mr. Wei to come and visit often. Wei Wenlong said sternly, thanks Lord Yingguan was not present at the moment and didn't see this scene, otherwise I would have to be recorded. Dugu Menglong was pure and innocent, she couldn't answer for a while. Xiao Poxian had to explain with a smile. Mr. Wei is joking that you never have a good face on the Mountain Master's side, but you are on Mr. Wei's side. So nice to talk about, she smiled and said, Master Qin Shan's temperament is not so small. Xiao Poxian said with a smile. This kind words I implore Mr. Wei to tell Shan Zhuchen all the way around. Dugu Menglong smiled. I don't think about it, it's my sincere words. Mr. Wei doesn't need to tell me, otherwise it will change the taste. Wei Wenlong nodded and said, don't worry, Lord Yingguan is like Ming Jing, and he understands it. Once I came to the accountant to chat and said that Miss Meng can follow Xiao Feng all the way, never give up, never complained, no anyone can do it. Drink bitter wine to strengthen their courage and hardship to nourish their qi, there will always be another village in the dark. Dugu Menglong was stunned for a while. I thought there were only some of the comments that made people worry. Wei Wenlong shook his head. The stars rotate with each other and the yin and yang are greatly transformed. They do not revolve around one person. The sun and the moon are moving and they are not only brilliant for one person. Each has its own life and destiny. Xiao Poxian smiled and said, I heard the words of Master Qin Shanzhu. Looking at the beautiful beaching fairy, Xiao Poxian was in a peaceful mood. In the spring, the natural embrace of the sky, and in the autumn, the different tunes of the sky, the flowers bloom and fall again. The Fengyuan ferry docked at Baichengdu tonight, of course not to show off Luo Peishan's wealth. The ferry now needs to cross 3 continents, loading and unloading goods at every ferry. In addition, reconciliation is also required. Usually Chong Qiuhezhang Jiazhen and Jia Xing, the second manager of Fengyuan Ferry, appeared together and were responsible for connecting with Baichengdu. After all, Wei Wenlong was the accountant of the previous sect. According to the usual rules on the mountain, it is not advisable to intervene in the financial affairs of the next sect. Zhang Jiazhen is also a member of Luopao mountain genealogy. It is more of an experience of being brought by Zhongqiu and an inheritance. There are more than Taoist tricks and techniques. As for Jiao Lao Shenxian, there is an old man in the family who has a treasure. Otherwise the cultivation realm will only talk about the world of human relationships. According to Cui Dongshan, at least it must start in the ascension realm. Generally speaking, when handing over goods and checking account books with Baichengdu, the passing ferry steward disembarked and went to the door. This is also a tribute to Yu Guizhong. According to Chief Mistemper, Baichengdu will be broken. This is a case in point. In fact, Baichengdu doesn't have this meaning. It's quite a headache because of this. Of course, he is willing to take the initiative to show goodwill to Luo Peishan, or the hidden official Qin Pingan, and he is worried about Yuguizhong Xinzhuan Peak. The Ancestor Hall is responsible, but it would be ridiculous to tell Xinzhuan Peak for such a trivial matter. There are indeed many twists and turns in the landscape and officialdom. Fortunately, Fengyuan Ferry had passed by this place for the first time before, and Chongqiu and Jiaxing quickly disembarked, which made the old monks in charge of Baichengdu feel relieved. In a billing room in Baichengdu on the side of Fengyuan Ferry, compared to the 3 familiar faces that had appeared a few times before, there were 3 more guests tonight. Among them was the Mi Jianxian who used to pass by Baichengdu and never got off the boat. There was also a man in a green shirt and a long coat, and a black-clothed girl who was sitting upright, drinking tea from the person in charge of the account. Old Immortal Jia didn't help introduce the identities of the 2 of them, so the stewards from Baichengdu who hurried here didn't ask any questions. As for the man with the sword with a warm expression, he carefully looked through the account books during the period, and it seemed that he was in Luopao Mountain in Aquarius Island, or the newly established Qingping sword sect, and his identity was not low. Maybe it is the heir of that Mi Jianxian? Now there is a gossip that is spreading, saying that this Mi Jianxian from the Great Wall of Sword Qi is already a true fairyland. How much good fortune do you have to become a direct disciple of a great sword immortal? It's a great blessing that I can't even imagine. The man in the blue shirt also raised a few questions about extremely professional accounting. Everyone in the room was a veteran, and he was a connoisseur at first sight, so a layman would definitely not be able to ask such questions. Qin Pingon didn't sit for a long time. After reading the accounts, he took Xiaomi Mi and Mi Dejiangxian to leave together. Immortal Jia was just about to get up when Qin Pingon smiled and reached out and pressed a few times, indicating that he didn't need to send it. Immortal Jia continued to pin his to the chair. This scene, by Chengdu, who was very good at observing words and expressions, was another crime. Muttering, "Is it possible that I neglected the honored guest?" Especially when they saw that the blue-shirt guest was the first to step out of the threshold, and Mi Dejiangxian followed behind, and the few people who were interested in Baichengdu in the house were completely stunned. When the 3 of them left the account, the old cultivator who was the leader of Biqing Ferry asked softly, "Brother Jia, who is this son?" Jiaxing stroked his beard and said with a smile, "To be honest, of course it's our Luoluo Mountains Shanzhu Qin. You may not know, but Qin Shanzhu has the most respect for the accountant in his life, so this time the ferry docked. Qin Shan, no matter how busy the Lord is, he still has to come and meet with a few old brothers. This is just when he was on the way, and the mountain master said that he was half with you all, so I took the opportunity to tell the mountain master." The general resume of everyone, the mountain master has listened carefully, and has already memorized them one by one. As for why he did not report his identity, of course, it is not that my mountain master intends to take the air, just because the mountain master is a past person and he is familiar with abacus and ledger. I know best that accounting is a delicate job, and I really don't want you to be distracted by polite greetings. Zhong Qiu drank tea and remained silent. Zhang Zhezhen bowed her head to settle accounts, admiring her heart. Zhou Mili didn't intend to get off the boat at first. She thought it would be good to lie on the railing and watch the scenery, but the good man said that she wanted to have a late-night snack, so she secretly weighed her money bag. She still had 1,000 troops under her command. "One Molly, can you lose to a table of wine and vegetables?" "Can't." But she still left the golden pole on the Fengyuan ferry. So tonight a little girl in black, carrying a small bamboo box and holding a walking stick, walked in the middle. Ha Fox fake tiger majesty. The good man on the side, the mountain master, has a hosta on his head, a blue shirt, long coat and cloth shoes, and a sword on his back. In a snow-white robe with an excellent appearance and a sword. A sword-raising gourd named Haoyang hangs from his waist. A leisurely stroll, the Grand Master bearing. A lazy attitude, the skin is brilliant. Not to be trifled. Even at night, Baichengdu Street was still crowded and bustling, and I was a little more curious about the identity of that little girl. Could it be that in a certain fairy mansion, that kind of old master who has achieved Taoism and rejuvenated his youth? When you go out, you have to master several skills of watching qi, wearing clothes, especially the style of robes, as well as those accessories that can surface your sect and immortal status. Are all about it. Qin Pingon joked. It seems that it is too far away from Beipingzu, so I walked so struttingly without using any tricks, and no one recognized me. Dejiangxian. Zhou Mili asked, "Good mountain master, is Yumi very famous outside the house?" Miyu knew something was wrong and just wanted to explain. Qin Pingon had already nodded. Mi Dejiangxian is very famous, anyway I can't compare it. Zhou Mili said in a low voice. That's right, I heard Sister Luan say that in Beiju Luzhou Kaik Mansion, we Yumi are very popular and every time we walk on the road it's the Sisters of the Fairies. Those who took the initiative to say hello to Yumi are welcome. Qin Pingon squinted at me Xianxian and said with a smile, "Oh?" Miu explained, "I saw no one talking in Kaik Mansion." Lord Guan sneered, "Huh. Millet Grain is full of doubts. Yumi, you are so big in Kaik Mansion, why are you so unapproachable? Can't you? How can I help you smooth things out? How can I remedy?" The little girl can only pretend to be confused. Ah. Miu was helpless. Qin Pingon smiled and asked, "Would you like to buy some melon seeds along the way?" Zhou Mili hurriedly shook his head. "Don't buy anything that can be bought in the market in this kind of fairyland, but when it comes to killing pigs you still have to go to the shop in Hangzhou town to buy melon seeds. Buy more, get a discount." Qin Pingon nodded. Old Daoist. Originally came here for supper. Zhou Mili reached into his sleeve, touched the heavy purse again and grinned, "I'll treat you today. I picked a restaurant nearby." On the wall behind the counter the wooden sign was full of signature dishes. Zhou Mili seemed to like it very much but looked at the prices in the brackets. Zhou Mili scratched his face, took a deep breath. "That's all, money is something outside the body. Let's go find a good family after the move. After this farewell today the rivers and lakes are destined to meet again." After ordering and sitting down Miu held back for a long time, but still couldn't hold back. "Millet grains, do you also like fish?" On the other side of Luapa Mountain the old cook would occasionally fry a few plates of river fresh food, but Miu would inevitably take a few more glances at the millet at the dinner table. And every time she moved her chopsticks, she just couldn't tell whether she liked it or not. "Anyway, every time I eat fish I don't spit thorns." As a result I was so proud of the millet grains today. I ordered a table of dishes and there were 2 fish, one for steaming and one for braised. Millet blinked. Qin Pingon said angrily, "The millet grains are in Dumb Lake. What do you eat without fish and shrimp every day and you are full of drinking water?" "You are the one who asked this question, Miu." Then Qin Pingon and Millet said in unison, "You fool." The little girl sat on the bench and laughed. It was so funny. Miu laughed dumbly. "Yes, millet grains also have a bag of dried fish ready at any time." Zhou Mili secretly winked at Miu. The confused account in front of him must have turned the page on the Goodman Mountain Master's side. Qin Pingon asked for an extra wine glass, so that the millet grains could drink a little to satisfy his cravings. In fact, when Pei Qian was a child she was also greedy for wine, but it was not because she really liked to drink. She just wanted to show that she was not young and could drink. But at that time, Qin Pingon was very strict. "Now do you want chestnuts?" Xiao Haitan often carried his master behind his back, secretly looking for Wei Haiyang, punching together, just drinking water and drinking. Zhou Mili took a sip of wine every time and gave a soft wow. Good wine is good wine, so he must exclaim and show his respect. If you want to drink tea the attention is different. You have to hold the cup in both hands, nod lightly and hum. These are all Jianghu doorways that Zhou Mili has figured out by himself. Halfway through the meal the patriarch of Yuguazong worshipped Wang Ji, and brought Qiu Ji the master of Jui Peak, and a pair of young swordsmen who looked like by men brothers and sisters Wei Gusu and Wei Xianyu, and came to the restaurant together. There was an uproar in the restaurant. Today the monks in the upper 5 realms of Tongya continent are rare and rare. As for the direct disciple of the great sword Immortal Wei Ying, who is highly valued, there is also some speculation about that child. It may be the genius sword cultivator from Juifeng. Wang Ji clasped his fists and said with a smile, "Master Qinshan, we just happened to have something to deal with at Bai Chengdu. I heard that the Fengyuan ferry was docked, so I rushed over. I was very disturbed. In Tongya continent in the past, there were as many cross-continental ferries as there were ascension cultivators. Now there are 2 cross-continental ferries here. There are 2 on Beiju Luzhou and there are 2 on Beipingzu. One is the Fengyuan ferry from Luopao Mountain, and the other is from the Fu family in Liaolongqing. Anyway, they are all very good. Recognize." Qin Pingon stood up and returned the salute. "Mr. Wang, brother Nianjiu, Miss Wei." Miu just put a chopstick in his mouth, but he was too lazy to get up, so he just raised his hand and clasped his fist. Qin Shanju and Zhou Mili sat on a bench. Miu took one and there were only 2 benches left. Wang Ji took the lead, sitting opposite Qin Pingon. Wei Gusu stood still, and so did his junior sister Wei Xianyu, but she had already moved first and stood beside the bench near Miu. Wei Xianyu reminded softly, "Senior brother, sit down. What are you doing?" Wei Gusu had to sit beside Wang Ji. Wei Xianyu smiled and said, "Mi Jianxian, we meet again." Miyu nodded with a smile. Wei Gusu took a sip of wine. In fact, I haven't had a drink yet and am already heartbroken. The old sect master Jiang has always been a nonsense. How can he just mention this kind of love between men and women in such a general sentence? Miyu is also self-aware of suffering. With the presence of the hidden official, he really was completely useless in martial arts. Qin Pingon glanced at Miyu without a trace. Miyu had already straightened his waist and sat upright, like a gentleman who did not touch his body in the middle of 100 flowers. Wang Jie's eyes are strange, a sword cultivator in the immortal realm. Is he so unremarkable? If it weren't for the nickname of Ms. Waste, he was famous and could not be faked. Otherwise Wang Ji would have doubted whether Miyu was a local sword cultivator of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Wang Ji asked, Master Chen Shan, we have eaten and found a quiet place to chat? The entire Baichengdu is the private property of Yu Guizhong. It has always been rented but not sold. Every year, it is not a small sum of money to collect rent from various immortal houses and the courts of various countries that open and do business here. Qin Pingon shook his head and smiled. Don't be so troublesome, let's chat while eating. Wang Ji said in his heart that Baozhai is going to participate in the excavation of Dadu, using 4,000 grain rain money as a deposit. Xinzhuan Peak Patriarch Hall has already received the letter from your Feijian, and just 2 days ago, it was specially opened. There was a discussion and there was not much objection, and now Sect Master Wei has been notified, at least in the secret letter. The meaning of Zhu Shitang's side has been clearly stated, and the vast majority are still in favor of this matter. It is an unwritten rule on the mountain that the content of the discussions in the Zhu Shitang, no matter how big or small, should not be easily disclosed to outsiders. Furthermore, regarding the temporary intervention of Baozhai, Qingping Jinzong is actually saying hello to outsiders, which is to take care of Yu Guizhong in face. But the most important thing is the way of cooperation of Baozhai, which does not involve too many established patterns like adding bricks and pieces and icing on the cake. Otherwise, let alone Yu Guizhong, I am afraid that De Quan Yao will be the first to object. Qin Pingon put chopsticks and dishes for the millet, picked up the wine bowl by himself, bumped gently with Wang Ji and said with a smile, on Xinzhuan Peak the objection of the Zhu Shitang is a little bigger and it's not a bad thing. I look at the burden. Zhai seems to be a little mentally prepared. Wang Ji immediately understood and drank with Qin Shanzhu. Miyu has gained a lot of knowledge again, and it's really an old way for a scholar to do business. Qin Pingon said, in any case, Baofuzi is a business and has a good reputation on the mountain and down the mountain. It is a golden signboard that has accumulated a lot of reputation for many years, and I think the focus of Baofuzi is still the future. Tongye to the south of the new Dadu continental world, it is inevitable to have frequent contacts with Jade Guizhong in the future. I have already met the old patriarch of Baozhai, Senior Zhang. To be able to do this business, naturally there is no shortage of shrewdness and skills, but I think Senior Zhang is still in the future. Yu Xinzhuan Peak might as well be more straightforward. Wang Ji nodded and said with a smile, it's roughly there. After that, Qin Pingon chatted with Qiu Ji a few more words. It seemed that the Peak Master of Jui Peak had already exchanged letters with Bai Xian several times not long after returning to the sect. Share the same difficulties. The two sides met by chance and they had a great conversation. They were full of wine and food. During the period, Zhou Mili went to ask for an extra pot of wine. When Qin Pingon got up and planned to let Miyu settle the account, Wang Ji smiled and said, when we arrive in Baichengdu, there is no reason to pay for a meal. Wei Gusu immediately got up and said, I'll go to check out. Zhou Mili smiled shyly and said, Immortal Master Wang, I've settled the bill. Qin Pingon nodded with a smile. Wang Ji had to give up, left the restaurant. Wang Ji took Qiu Ji and the others away from Baichengdu, and sacrificed a talisman boat to return to Jade Guizhong overnight. Qin Pingon smiled and asked, how much did it cost? Zhou Mili stretched out 3 fingers. Qin Pingon was shocked. 3 small summer money? If the rebellion is not successful, kill the pig. Let's go ask for an explanation. Zhou Mili grinned. Qin Pingon patted the little girl's head and said earnestly, me and I, are you a pighead? Can you pay me obediently? Miyu was speechless. Lord Yingguan, isn't your acting too clumsy? Wrong. It's snow money. Never thought that the grains of millet would be triumphant, and he laughed. If it wasn't for the pot of Xinjia wine I ordered last, the money for less than 2 snows would be enough. It doesn't matter if Shui spends money, they are all anonymous disciples. If you go down the mountain, you can go down the mountain. You should work hard and practice your own way. It depends on who you are in the future. Xiaoshu money, passed down by the patriarch. Each one has a name and a surname on Zhou Mili's side. Guyu money, oh that's amazing, but it's a pity that the millet grains have been saved for so long, and I haven't been able to save a grain of rain money. Shi, Pei Qian and Sister Nuanshu, each of them has 3 money pots, each with 3 mountains of money, all of which are placed on Sister Nuanshu's side. Separate copper coins, gold and silver coins and fairy coins. The little girl suddenly felt a little guilty. Good man Shan, in fact I bought the cheapest wine in the restaurant. The other kinds of Xianxia wine are too expensive, I can't bear it. Me just wanted to comfort a few words, don't worry etc. The courtesy is light and affectionate and it already gives a lot of face. If Wang Ji can drink a pot of wine, it is time to burn high incense. As a result, Lord Yingguan was different. He rubbed the head of the millet grains and joked. Why are you so stingy? Where did the big water monster of the dumb lake who persuaded me to buy a bunch of bells with Guy's money? Millet grinned, frugal and thrifty at home. Qin Pingon nodded and said, like me it's not that the whole family does not enter the house. Miyu clasped the back of his head with both hands, and occasionally a woman steals his gaze. We me Xianxia never strayed. Good man Mountain Master, where is it that a meal costs 2 or 3 small summer money? Is it really there? Yes, why not? Not to mention Xiaoshu money, there are meals that spend Guyu money. Tsk every chopstick goes down, it is to eat fairy money. Can't you lift the chopsticks? Qin Pingon raised his face, raised his hand and made a gesture of holding chopsticks, trembling his wrist slightly. That's not it, I have to serve vegetables like this. That's really just eating and drinking. That's not it, as long as there is a chance in the future, I will definitely take you with me and grow together. Ha, then I'll have a discussion with the host, take 1 less chopstick, eat 1 less dish, drink 1 less wine and convert it into money for me. That won't work. I will drop the price and lose my share. I can't open this mouth. It seems that I can't bring you with me. Otherwise, I will become a little beggar who's squatting at the table with you and begging for money. Haha, it's interesting to think about it, just think about it. Miu also found it very interesting to listen to the conversation between one big and one small. Zhou Mili Chen Wanshu Chao Qingqing. No matter what their status, they are the beauty in the hearts of hidden officials. It's like holding a small bowl, spring flowers are blooming, the sky is clear, there is nothing to do today and it is safe and sound. When it comes to things, don't ask about the harvest, ask about the cultivation and don't ask outside. In the heart, diligently practice precepts, concentration and wisdom and pray for blessings with God. A young emperor, His Majesty, came to a city under his jurisdiction with a private visit, and was accompanied by a royal family of Jindan. Nascent soul immortals who died in battle with the late emperor were in the capital. Today the old capital of the Daoist dynasty has long since been reduced to ruins, turned into a ruin, because it was razed to the ground by the demon army. In addition, there was a who was the personal squire of the young emperor, accompanied by a military general surnamed Bao. In addition to Gu Qiu and the maid Xiao Feng, there were Wu Fu Hong Cho, scattered cultivator Wang Manmeng, and the money monkey who seemed to be sleepwalking at the moment. In the early spring there are many national sacrificial ceremonies. Today, Z is not a cultivator and came here by ferry. At this time the 2 groups of people walked to the abandoned mansion together. Emperor Yuan Ying laughed softly. Gu Qiu, this matter is very important. You should have informed General Bao earlier and we should also make the best of the friendship of the landlords. After all, that Cui Xianxia is the master of a sect, and in today's Tongye continent, there are only a handful of immortal houses with the sect prefix. The young emperor did not intend to hold Gu Qiu accountable. The reason why Yuan Ying's court knew about this was that it was a bit of a twist. First, Qian Hoer leaked his mouth on Wang Manmeng's side, and mentioned Xindu Mountain and Qingping Sword sect. It's true that the relationship between Cho was deadlocked, but he still told Hong Cho the news about that group of people, especially the blue-shirt guest who was Mr. Cui Dongshan, who seemed to be from Aquarius. Once the neighbor in the north was involved, Hong Cho would he became interested and immediately asked his friends from all over the world to connect with General Bao. 1-2 The Emperor Yuan Ying was alarmed. Facing an emperor, Gu Qiu still said indifferently, General Bao has to manage the army and people's livelihood. I didn't know the inside story before, so I naturally dare not bother General Bao with such inaccurate trivial matters. The military general who held real power suddenly looked embarrassed. Yuan Ying laughed it off. They came to Qian Hoer's house. Qian Hoer was trembling, moved 2 chairs and said in a trembling voice, "Your Majesty, Sect Master Cui and Mr. Qian were sitting here that night. The chairs are guaranteed not to be at all difference." The first time he was dealing with the emperor, Qian Jun was at a loss for words. Seeing that Qian Hoer's hands were shaking while carrying the chair, Wang Manmeng covered her mouth and smiled. She could sit around the fireplace with the head of a sect on the mountain, chatting for half an hour. How could she see the emperor at the foot of the mountain? That's all. Ridiculous. The Yuan dynasty of the Old Dayun was also a great country with a profound heritage in the north of Tongye continent. Now the territory of the mountains and rivers is divided into 3, because there are 3 members of the royal family who were born in the vassal region, and they have successively established themselves as emperors. All 3 say that they are inheriting the orthodoxy. The other 2 countries are not justified. In those days, the Yuan dynasty in Diyuan and the Yao dynasty in Dequan dared to use the whole country to resist the invasion of the demon army. The Yuan family was in the border, the hinterland and the capital. They gathered troops and horses one after another, but unfortunately, unlike the fate of Dequan Yao's, they failed to hold the capital and Guizhou was cut off. Now that the old dynasty has been divided into 3, the national strength is naturally not as strong as before. Among them, the new Emperor Yuan Ying has gathered a group of veteran officials of the old Diyuan dynasty, but many generals, especially the relatively young generation, have taken refuge in Yuan Li, who has also become emperor. In fact, Yuan Ying is suffering. I know they just dislike the official hats they can give here are not big enough, the rewards are too few, they are stingy, they are good at shopping around and good birds choose wood to live in, but the problem is those military generals who are separated from the towns. Yuan Ying really doesn't think so. Putting them in the important positions of temples and gates in various places is a good thing for the court and the people everywhere. Yuan Ying is not looking down on their background. If they are really talented, Yuan Ying is willing to accept them if they behave a little bit, but they are all respectful. It's not that there are staff who are old and tactical. I remind the Emperor Yuan Ying that it is better to turn a blind eye and get through the difficulties first. Otherwise those arrogant soldiers will go to other places. It's difficult to keep the country. We need to solve the urgent need first and then wait until the Dayuan dynasty is unified to come again slowly. But Yuan Ying didn't agree, and it turned out that the general Bao beside him was a veritable short man. Pull the general. I have to admit that those who can really fight have gone to Yuan Li. This person is most willing to give capital, mansion, title, beauty, gold and silver as long as the warriors of all walks of life dare to speak. Yuan Li will give it, and if he can't give it temporarily he will owe it. Those sites were converted into rewards. That's why Yuan Mi thought of forming an alliance with herself. But Yuan Ying knew very well that such measures to quench thirst by drinking poison were nothing more than seeking the skin of a tiger. In the end, Yuan Ying, the emperor who didn't do that either, became indecisive and the kindness of women. Qian Hoer was full of sweat, his tongue was knotted and he said vaguely, "Report to His Majesty the Emperor that night Cui Dongshan sat on this chair. This chair was sat by his husband, these 2 people from Xindu Mountain. The land gods are extremely approachable. I don't know what happened. The 2 immortal masters and Xiao are still in a good relationship and they chatted for a while. Some of the sayings about the text are all from the miscellaneous books and dramas, which are inappropriate relying on luck. In fact, Qian Jun is still kept in the dark. He doesn't know what the big thing happened and he needs to take the emperor of a country to visit the city in person. I just hope that I don't get caught in the Chiyu by something. I have small arms and thin legs, so thin that I have only a few tails of meat and it is not enough to stick between my teeth." Yuan Ying's expression was gentle, she just smiled and nodded. For no reason, the addition of a neighbor with the prefix Song was tantamount to thundering on the ground for the great Yuan dynasty. If Yuan Ying remembers correctly, in the entire history of Tongyezhou, there was a Kendo sect. It seems that it was 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. Since it was a blessing or a curse that could not be avoided, Yuan Ying carefully read all the information about this city, and after weighing the pros and cons, she still insisted on going there in person. Yuan Ying smiled and said, "Qian Jun, don't be nervous, tell me, what did the 2 immortal masters talk to you that night?" The young emperor then asked people to move 2 benches over to the lobby and said with a smile, "We all sit down and talk." Qian Hoer swallowed and sat on the bench with half of her buttocks. Yuan Ying couldn't help but laugh. "Qian Jun, do you want to drink?" Qian Hoer hesitated for a moment, looked at Wang Manmeng out of the corner of his eyes, and saw that she looked out of the way. "Auntie, is it so unscrupulous?" Hong Cho clasped his fists and said, Report to your majesty Qianjun can drink but not too much. It is best to drink half a caddy of wine. Yuan Ying nodded with a smile. Then bring a pot of wine and Qianjun can drink it by himself. Yuan Ying and Guqiu said, I have seen what you have done in this city, Guqiu. It is up to you to temporarily fill the missing state city god temple that sits here, and wait until I rebuild the capital one day. Forget it. I'll talk about it later and I won't talk big here. Guqiu nodded silently. Yuan Ying originally wanted to say that Guqiu would be promoted to the temple of the city god in the capital, but Yuan Ying had never been good at such means of buying people's hearts, so he could only say half the story. Hongqiu, you are the Grand Master of the Six Realms. If you want, you can take a post with General Bao. As for the specific official position, we will discuss it later. At the latest half a month, the court will give you an exact answer. When Hongqiu heard the words, he immediately stood up and clasped his fists. Wang Manmeng, you are a mountain immortal in the middle 5 realms. If you are willing to establish a sect, the court is willing to set aside a piece of land for you. As for money, I will not hide anything. The court is indeed helpless. Wang Manmeng smiled and said, Your Majesty has won the prize. In fact, I'm just a chi practitioner in the Dongfu realm, only a little bit related to the middle 5 realm, a wild cultivator, a woman's Taoist family, and there is no dojo. I'm just floating around. I can't afford to say immortal. As for the establishment of a school, I don't dare to expect too much. I am used to a leisurely life and may not adapt to the landscape and officialdom. I hope Your Majesty will forgive me. Yuan Ying looked gentle, nodded and smiled. I don't dare to force it. Afterwards, Qian Hoer used the wine to strengthen his courage, and originally told the content of the small talk that night. The more Emperor Yuan Ying listened to, the more she felt that there was no bottom. Especially that Mr. Qin, who is so holy. To be able to serve as a preacher of the head of a sect? Guqiu suddenly said, Your Majesty, there are visitors. There are 4 people in total. 2 of them are ghost repairers who are in the Jindan realm, and the other 2 can't tell the depth for the time being. Soon someone came to the door and came to the courtyard outside the house. They were busy. Among the 4 people in the group, 2 were indeed earth immortal ghost cultivators. Guqiu frowned slightly but just took a quick look at it. The state city candidate city godlord quickly stretched his brows. There are different paths, good and evil, not between people and ghosts. It was Chao Qingqing, Tui Wei Wugo and Xiao Minying. Yuan Ying waved her hand, indicating that she should not be nervous, and crossed the threshold to the outside of the house. I saw that the young man in the Confucian shirt had a warm expression, and said with a bow, Chao Qingqing has seen Your Majesty. The middle-aged man with a stern face said indifferently, Qingping Sword Sect and Tui Wei is in charge. The other 2 ghost cultivators followed their self-registration numbers. The Qingping Sword Sect's ancestors are worshipped by Wu Hook. The ancestors are worshipped by Xiao Minying. The young emperor moved slightly. A sect patriarch, the patriarch of the law, actually spoke later than a genealogy cultivator? It's a pity that the news on Tonggishao Mountain is blocked now, not to mention the mountain affairs in Biezhou. Some Shanshui Mansion newspapers can only send people to places like Baichengdu and Taiedu to buy them with a lot of money. What's even more pitiful is that the imperial court needs to owe those monks on credit. And thanks to the fact that most of those immortal masters are worshipped by the families of the old courtiers of the old Great Yuan dynasty, they never care about this. On the spring day in the Xindu Mountains, the Qingping Sword Sect was newly established, and the first sect master Tui Dongshan. Among the spectators there are Yuguazong and Daquan dynasty. On the Shanshudi newspaper there is only so much news. Tui Dongshan? Yuan Ying found some senior monks and they all said that they had never heard of this person. Yuan Ying straightened the front of her clothes and bowed back to Chao Qingqing, the descendants of Yuan's Gao Zong and Din. Yuan Ying has met Chao Xianxia and Cui Zhonglu, 2 worshipping Xianxia. Chao Qingqing smiled and said, Your Majesty does not need to be more polite. Cui Zhonglu, Wu Zong and Xiao Zong and I have already reviewed the people's livelihood in their respective jurisdictions under His Majesty, Yuan Li and Yuan Mi. In fact, the news of the other 2 emperors is more well-informed than Yuan Ying. It is only said that Yuan Li has even brought the real person to protect the country, and has set up a battle with the new Wuya mountain lord. On the way to Xindu Mountain, Chao Qingqing said, Governing a big country is like cooking small fresh food. It is difficult for a clever woman to cook without rice. After all, she is a clever woman. The master of a country is eager for quick success and instant gains, but it is not a long-term plan after all. Emperor Yuan Ying was speechless for a while. Cui Wei said indifferently, Chao Qingqing is the direct disciple of the Lord Qin Shanzhu of Shangzong Luopao Mountain, so Chao Qingqing's view is the view of the entire Qingping sword sect. Hong Chou and Wang Manmeng, who had always been calm and breezy, were both shocked and looked at each other. In an instant Hong Chou's forehead was full of sweat, he swallowed his saliva and clasped his fists and asked, Dare to ask Chao Xianxia and Cui Zhonglu, is Luopa Mountain the Luopa Mountain in Aquarius? Chao Qingqing nodded with a smile and Cui Wei asked back, otherwise. As soon as these words came out, the young emperor and his party were the same as Qian Hoer, sleepwalking. But it's a good dream. Ride Dragon Lane. Xiago hesitated for a while but still didn't show her true appearance. After being held down on her head, she shrank her neck and said, Well, now we are all a family. She smiled and said, Thank you, dog. Why did you choose such a name? Bai Jing Chao Hao exterior scene Yaoling. These are not all good. Now be careful of the dog's head. Bai Jing is a sword repairer, and Bai Jing is also the new owner of the Wuxia. Therefore, in terms of inheritance, Bai Jing and Yangji belong to their own dharma. Thank you, dog. Smile is far-fetched. Sword holder, sword servant, sword spirit? Xiaomo wanted to stand up. Qin Pingon signaled Xiaomo to sit down. This wine table in Chaotu shop on Riding Dragon Lane is now like a vortex of a long river of time, and it is like a well that does not violate the river. There is a saying in Zen, a poet and monk, when people cross the bridge does not flow. Regardless of whether it was a mistake or not, it has long since been revealed. That, Qin Pingon smiled and said, Xiaomo, my real body is still in Tongyi's Hao. As for me in front of you, I'm just a poor person who was exiled by myself. Of course I'm still me. Xiaomo hesitated for a while, but still endured the awkwardness in his heart and said, Xiaomo has seen the sun. Bai Jing looked at the strange existence and asked a strange question that matched it. You and Qin Pingon, who ate whom? The relationship between the yang and the outer body of the cultivator, the yin who leaves the body and the real body who is the master and who is the auxiliary is clear at a glance. But the person in front of him has a lot of knowledge. As for the inside of the wine shop, Xiao Denggao Tianjur, the white-haired boy who now goes by the pseudonym Kong Ho, and the girl Cui Huohuan were all still. She looked at the white-haired boy looking like a demon and said with a smile, Are you playing a game of wooden people? The white-haired boy's eyes turned slightly, and he felt that since everyone is his own family, what are you afraid of? No longer pretending to be a wooden man, he immediately began to raise his arms and shout, The ancestor of the hidden officer, the Daoist method is sky-high, the boxing town is 3 continents, the swordsmanship is invincible and the style is outstanding. It's a no-brainer. The trajectory of the white-haired boy's arms waving, pulled up a stream of colorful glass, and the words that he said were scattered in the air like golden sand. Qin Pingon smiled and said, Go ahead, there are not too many good words. The white-haired boy felt that his throat was smoking and his eyes complained, Ancestor hidden official, forgive me for my lack of knowledge, I really have no words. Qin Pingon smiled and said, No more brewing? The white-haired boy twitched his nose and said with a face full of grievances, I have to read the book, learn now and use it now. Bai Jingxiao was surprised, Kong Ho, you are hiding quite deep. I thought this neighbor was the kind of immortal who played with the world, but never thought that it was still a hidden ascension realm. Among Qi practitioners, looking at the same realm in the same realm is all about seeing flowers in the fog, unlike pure martial arts who can rely on breathing, footsteps, the gas state when walking, especially the subtle changes in the muscles, bones and muscles of the whole body. It is difficult to hide the martial arts. Academic realm. Seeing the look in Qin Pingan's eyes, Bai Jing knew it in his heart and asked tentatively, Do I need to swear an oath? In this palm-sized Huaihuang County, Bai Jing finally learned what hidden dragon and crouching tiger is. First, the gatekeeper Xianwei, and now there is an ascension realm Waowaishan demon, who is just a servant disciple of Luopao Mountain. She patted Bai Jing's ermine hat and sat aside. Kong House identity is really not a trivial matter, but it's okay to swear, it's not a big sin if you can't keep your mouth shut. Bai Jing sighed for no reason. When people are against the sky, there is no way for people to be invincible. The white-haired boy noticed that Ziga's contemptuous gaze and squinted at me. How old are you, a dwarf melon? The white-haired boy put his hands on his hips and stared blankly at Bai Jing. Xiego spread his hands. You won. Qin Pingon suddenly asked. Bai Jing, in terms of seniority, is concubine Fei your second disciple? Xiego thought for a while. I have so many disciples and grandchildren that I can't even count them. Whom did concubine Fei learn from? Unless they confront each other and fight, it's hard to be sure. Liang, I was on the side of the Heluo River before. In order to come to see Xiaomo, I left in a hurry and I didn't meet this junior like concubine Fei. According to Qing Tong, this Baijing once built a dojo in the Wild Sun, but every few hundred years the dojo needs to be rebuilt. Half of the demon monks who follow the practice path of refining the sun and worshipping the moon in the wild world all have to accept Baijing's love. So Qin Pingon first heard Qing Tong's talk about Baijing, and then he guessed whether Baijing was the incarnation of fire essence. Not like many bright moons even in the great sun, even proficient in fire art, the cultivator of the Ascension realm is also extremely difficult to live for a long time, just like the real fire dragon who is known as the first person in the world of fire art. And it seems that he has not been able to walk through this road and cannot enter the 14 realm by this. 10,000 years ago on the earth, there were many genius monks with roots and feet, belonging to the Divine One. They were all reincarnations of gods with broken golden bodies. Although their divinity was incomplete, they were born suitable for cultivation, and they often broke through the realm quickly. But the bottleneck of the earth immortal is more difficult to break than a pure Daoist. As for Xiego saying that he has many apprentices and grandchildren, it is not bragging about not making drafts. Xiego cautiously glanced at the woman in white beside him from the corner of his eyes. Hey, he's quite tall, almost a head taller than himself. Xiego looked at Qin Pingon again and asked me what to do. Why should I leave the near and far? You have to ask the sword holder beside me. She glanced at Xiego and said lazily, it's not the 14 realms, what do you care about? Xiego didn't get angry. She usually said this kind of words, and it was nothing more than referring to the 14 realms as the Ascension realm. In this way he is indeed a dwarf, maybe more than that. She didn't bother to pay any attention to a white scene and said slowly, if there is such a mountain in the world, let this Huaihuang County be the place of Longxing. One day it will be announced to the world and a sect will be called the Ancestor. Ko Ming, Cui Yu, Qi Jingchun, the three principal and deputy leaders, Xing Juzhong is in charge of the law, and Lu Jubao is in charge of the money. These few can not only point out the direction of the avenue for others, but at the same time, some people take the lead in climbing, set an example, open up the road and turn the natural moat into a passage. It is only said that in one patriarchal hall, there are 5 great monks of the 14th realm sitting. Rao Shi Baijing was dumbfounded. Great monk of the 14 realms, is it the Chinese cabbage in the roadside vegetable garden? Sort of coming. Chapter 976. Red Candle Town in the first month of the month, is still quite New Year's Day. As an important business hub, there are many guild halls in Dallas prefectures and counties, with old faces and New Year couplets. The young shopkeeper of a bookstore is lying on a rattan chair and dozing at the moment. The affairs of the waterhouse are left to the subordinate officials and subordinates to take care of it. He learned from the Lord Chen Shanju of Luopao Mountain and became a shopkeeper. Some people walked over the threshold, smiled and clasped their fists and said a pleasing remark. Manager Li opened the door and wished the business is prosperous and prosperous. Li Jin saw Qin Pingon and sat up from the reclining chair. Both parties knew the bottom line. Li Jin didn't make any coquettish greetings and didn't get up to greet him. Qin Pingon was happy that Li Jin was so indifferent and felt more at ease. He entered the bookstore, glanced at the bookshelves in the store, his eyes stopped in one place and asked, why are there so few biography of 27 histories and 100 generals? But collecting this business requires perfection in addition to perfection. If it is, the price will not go up, and now there is only 1 second book missing. Li Jin's business experience is still very old-fashioned, and it stands to reason that such a loss-making business should not be done. I was spotted by an old friend, and the shop made an exception and confiscated the money. Li Jin gave an explanation without ambiguity. After all, this young hidden official in front of him and the Luopao Mountain, who seems to have finally seen the sun in the middle of the sky, have an extremely rare preacher's grace for him. Li Jin. First, Zhu Lian presented 2 paintings and then Qin Pingon personally helped to draw gold. Sealing the seal is tantamount to helping Li Jin create another carp jumping over the dragon's gate, out of thin air. This incense love as the water of the Danjiang River, Li Jin is destined to be unable to repay for a while. Long take your time. Qin Pingon thought for a while, recalled the contents of the first and third volumes and instantly understood. Most of the guests who can make Li Jin make an exception are the state city Zhongping. In the past, the Land Master of the Temple of Mantu Mountain was promoted in the officialdom of Dali Shanshui, which belonged to a series of jumps, a well-deserved extraordinary promotion. If you want to say that the current Chuzhou city god, Zhongping, doesn't have some roots in the road covered by clouds and fog, who would believe it? Although Weibo has never disclosed the details of the other party, he occasionally chats a few times. Whenever Zhongping is discussed, Weibo, as the king of Beiyue Mountain, can cover up his words, but his demeanor is the answer. Luopao Mountain and Zhongping's city god temple are close neighbors of mountains and rivers. Of course, Qin Pingon is more attentive, so he has checked a lot of various anecdotes about the ancient Shu land, especially the archives of the Xinshui kingdom and history, plus the one in the Zhochen God temple. The incense little man is also associated with Luopao Mountain. It is said that millet grains often talk about it. It is said that over the years, regardless of the weather, I ordered Mao on time and was very sincere. Pingon has long heard the name of the boy in red clothes, but unfortunately he has never covered his face, so this trip home, Qin Pingon intends to have a few more words with this little guy who wants to be the chief protector of riding a dragon lane. Li Jin smiled and said, I also asked Shanjuchen to see it through and not tell it. Qin Pingon nodded, hesitated for a moment and said in his heart, I would like to ask the shopkeeper to turn back and convey a message to Zhang Qinghuang. If there is a chance in the future, I will help him and someone to ask for a military book with autographs, but this is not the case. Guaranteed, I can only say that I will try my best. If it fails, let Zhang Qinghuang not be too disappointed, tentatively set a 100-year period. In the world of Qingming, the guardian of the Sueju Palace, who used to be the young shopkeeper of the upside-down mountain Storkin, Qin Pingon is indeed familiar with it. If it weren't for the night boat, Wu Shuangjiang leaked the secret, and indeed he would have killed Bai Luo, who was once one of the worshippers of the Wu temple, just because the killing was too heavy and the exploits were flawed. The shrine was moved out of the main hall dedicated to the 10 philosophers of the martial temple, downgraded and moved to one of the 2 temples, and finally only ranked the 4th-class famous general. Li Jin rarely showed a shocked expression. Is this all right? In Zhang Ping's own words, he is not worthy to lead a horse to this person. Li Jin asked tentatively, why don't you add me? Qin Pingon nodded and smiled. The same is not guaranteed. Li Jin waved his hand. If you have a book you like, take it as you like. Anyway, it has already made an exception and it won't matter in the future. Qin Pingon smiled and said, don't worry, I'll ask Li Huai to pick up the book when I look back. I've agreed, just pick it up if you like it, don't go back on it. Li Jin choked for a moment. The little bunny with a head and a head back then was not a seed for reading at first glance, but he was very lucky and Li Jin had already learned it. Qin Pingon reminded, I really want to help the shopkeeper get that book of war, but don't turn around and put it in the shop for sale, this kind of thing is not suitable. Li Jin said with a smile, don't say that Shanjuchen doesn't agree. As long as Zhang Ping knows about it, he will tear down my bookstore, grab the books and then break up with me. Qin Pingon raised his hand and gestured, I have a good memory, all the books in the shop should be sealed away, so brother Li Jin, don't think about moving the books overnight, especially don't think about finding a few trays, pretending asking people to buy books and secretly send them to the waterhouse is unacceptable, it's too immoral. Li Jin lay on the rattan chair and waved his hand towards the door. No guest, no guest. Qin Pingon didn't move in a hurry and joked, Yo, why are you still ordering the eviction? Li Jin began to close his eyes and rest. Qin Pingon looked around and actually thought seriously about becoming a bookstore shopkeeper and selling books for a living. After Qin Pingon retracted his gaze, he smiled and said, Go to Luapa Mountain when you have time. Li Jin nodded, Go when you have time. Qin Pingon said angrily, Have time to spare? Is brother Li Jin busy all year round? He's not too small, he's really an uncle. Li Jin opened his eyes and said, I'm afraid that I'm getting used to it. Everyone is as rude as Qin Shanju Zhu Lian, the former Jing Dafeng, now the Xianwei Daoist who likes to bargain, and Xiang, that Zhou Junshin who likes credit, all came to me to carry books up the mountain. Qin Pingon said helplessly, It's just a misunderstanding by outsiders. Brother Li Jin doesn't know our Luapa Mountain. I'm used to throwing my hands off the shopkeeper and I can't control them. Li Jin smiled and said, I know it in my heart. Leaving a bustling and lively red candle town and heading to Chiduan Mountain, Qin Pingon went to the temple to find the mountain Song Yuzhang for a drink. The things he talked about were the past, and he was ridiculed by his colleagues in the mountains as Song Jin too. I am a little surprised today because Qin Pingon took the initiative to ask about many old people in the kiln mouth, all of which were from Song Yuzhang's past when he was a supervisor. Both parties enjoyed the drink very much. They drank and drank for themselves and no one persuaded them to drink. This kind of wine is easily intoxicating. Finally, when he looked at the man in the blue shirt who walked out of the temple's living room, Song Yuzhang felt a lot of emotion. 30 years ago, some people said that the man named Qin Pingon in the small mud bottle alley would make great achievements in the future, and Song Yuzhang should just take it as a joke that was forgotten. In the early spring, the wind is warm and sunny, the time is bright, and the fragrant trees are covered with fragrant trees. Qin Pingon didn't lose his smell of alcohol. He passed Chiduan Mountain, his mind moved slightly, his toes a little, and he jumped up like a bird, shuttled through the mountains and forests and stopped at a green pine branch. The ancient pine is the same color, the two-sleeve robes are slowly falling down, the arms are around the chest, and the back is against the trunk of the pine tree. It is no coincidence that it is a book. I saw the incense little man who needs to go to Luopa Mountain to order Mao on time every month. I saw a small and cute boy in red on a mountain road that was inaccessible, riding a stout white-flowered snake with a bucket. The boy in Zhu Yi sat cross-legged on the back of the white flower snake, rambled about you have no credit and hard work. You can't be worse than me, put 100 hearts, wait for the uncle, I will be promoted one day, I will never treat you badly. When the time comes I just need to have a discussion with Pei Duozhu and Zhou Deputy Duozhu, and allow you to accompany me to climb the mountain. As long as there are many times, I believe that we will always run into the Shenlong Qinshanzhu who sees the beginning but not the end, and then let me Qinshanzhu opened his mouth and asked you a few words casually. How difficult is it to refine the shape of the fairy? This is called a few words of the true scriptures, and the enemy is more than 10,000 volumes of false scriptures. It's called luck. Do not believe. Look at the great immortal Hongxia and immortal Master Yunzi. How are they now? If they are considered to be immortals they must be considered. As for our amiable ancestor Lingjun, let alone talk about it. Don't look at his old man's youthful appearance. In fact he is a lot of Taoist age. The founding merits of hanging a portrait in a Ho pavilion? You don't know anything about Luopao Mountain. Ancestor Lingjun and I can often meet each other and I don't know anything. I want to come to the venerable Qinshanzhu who has heard of me more or less and knows what kind of luck this is. This is called Jane in the heart of the emperor. Qin Pingon felt a pain in his head when he heard it. No wonder this little guy fell in love with Luopao Mountain. The boy in Zhui was still thinking about it over there, and he had already mentioned the love-hate relationship between Qinshanzhu and the claw-fish backing Lu Chongrun. There are good reasons. Can the island owner travel thousands of miles from Shujian Lake, leave his hometown and move all the way to the desolate mountain realm? Jinwuzongjiao, do you know? It's no wonder that in the early years when he heard Pei Duozhu swear by his master's appearance, it was called a high-spirited, arrogant Xiaxia. If you want to talk about the competition, I really don't brag, two-way Shanjun can't beat a master. I want to come. Lu Daozhu is infatuated with Qin Shanzhu, which can be considered excusable. It's a pity that I have the owner of Kukusoso. It is difficult to even watch the flowers and the moon in the mirror. The Shanshui Di newspapers on the side of the city god temple are regularly distributed by the imperial court. Seeing the real face of Qin Shanzhu, it is hateful and sighing. But that Lu Chongrun is really good looking, he should be thin, he should be bulging. Qin Pingon really had no ears to continue listening and fell to the ground, coughing a few times. The boy in red clothes quickly patted the scales of the mount, called out twice as if to restrain the horse and asked loudly, "Who is coming?" Qin Pingon held back his smile and said, "Just passing by." The boy in Zhu Yi thought for a while and asked, "Is it someone who cultivated Taoism on the mountain or was it in the rivers and lakes?" Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Let's go to the rivers and lakes." The boy in Zhu Yi understood that he must have come for the name of Luopao Mountain, so he persuaded, "Young people should not be too arrogant, expecting to be able to climb Luopao Mountain and worship Qin Shanzhu as a teacher. Listen to me. Persuade there is no hospitality now, and when you reach the mountain gate outsiders will stop. If you don't believe it, I will not laugh at you when you run for nothing. That's all visitors are guests. When you arrive at the mountain gate I will saying hello to Daoist Xianwei, you can still drink a bowl of tea. In this way it is not a complete run for nothing. When you return to your hometown and brag a few words with others, It is not bragging or drafting. Qin Pingon cupped his hands and clasped his fists. Ching ching. The boy in Zhu Yi nodded with a stern face. He was a young descendant who knew the rules of etiquette. Mixed rivers and lakes will definitely not be hungry. The two sides met by chance, and it was a coincidence that they walked together like this, trekking mountains and rivers together and rushing to Luopa Mountain. The boy in Zhu Yi has a big heart, and he is really not afraid of encountering a murderer. In this state boundary, who would dare to make a mistake? However, I occasionally take a few glances at the young man who claims to be a passerby. He climbs the mountains, and the blue-shirt tourists around him are like walking on the ground. He has such a mastery demeanor. No wonder he dared to try his luck here on Luopa Mountain. The boy in Zhu Yi couldn't help but ask, "Listen to your accent, it doesn't look like a foreigner? Where is it?" "Near Dadu, all the way north." Now in the Dali dynasty, the so-called foreigners are only the vast mountains and rivers south of Aquarius. But if you push them forward a few years, they will be people from other continents. Qin Pingon smiled and said, "When we meet by chance, don't ask about your background." The boy in Zhu Yi smiled. He's not too old, but he's quite old-fashioned. The incense little man said with a smile. The Red Candle Town is a well-known place to sell gold. The hero is sad for the beauty pass, and there is no money left in your pocket now, right? Qin Pingon shook his head and said, "I'm alone in the arena, so it's not good for me." The boy in Zhu Yi pouted. They are all big men pretending to be a gentleman with me, not sincere. Originally, I thought about drinking tea at the gate of the mountain, and I felt that this person was a good person, so I took him to the Qinghuang temple to gain insights and do the best of the landlord's friendship. When the time comes, I will move out of my identity and scare the other party. The only problem is that Zhang Ping is full of poverty and sour, and he may not be willing to bring guests to the door by himself. Thinking back to that time when he was in Mantu Mountain, he tried his best to help him match up and find a good housewife, but he was kind. Being treated as a donkey's liver and lungs, I have to shed a handful of bitter tears, and the past is unbearable, but fortunately it is not bad now, and wherever I go it is a card. Coming to a hill with a wide field of vision, the boy in red clothes patted the back of the white snake, indicating that he could take a break and look at the scenery. Qin Pingon squatted aside, grabbed a licorice root nearby, dusted off the soil and chewed it in his mouth. Looking ahead, there was a water beach in the distance outside the mountain. The wind was blowing and the sky was high. Birds linger. When I was a child, I felt that my hometown was very big, but when I was an adult, I felt that Aquarius was very small. Different life years, the same scenery is in sight, and different tastes are in my heart. The boy in Zhu Yi was silent for a moment, then asked curiously, "You are not a fairy on the mountain? You saw such a snake that was about to become a snake halfway, so you were not afraid at all? What's more, how can my respectful face be called in the strange book at the foot of the mountain? It's that kind of miraculous. Why are you not surprised at all? Is it a genealogical cultivator who was born in a high-level immortal mansion, pretending to be a ranger while wandering the mountains and waters while searching for the mountains?" Qin Pingon smiled and said, "I've been traveling abroad all the time, and I don't dare to say that I have a lot of knowledge. At least I have walked a lot at night." The boy in Zhu Yi crossed his arms around his chest, looked at the man squatting and chewing grass roots and asked, "Born from a hard life?" Qin Pingon shook his head and smiled and said, "Fortunately, the small door, the elders and relatives accumulate good deeds. As if the family has surplus food every year, they can't starve their descendants." The boy in Zhu Yi nodded and sniffed. He shouldn't have mentioned this. He felt sad when he mentioned it. "I'm from a bitter background. I can't blame others. I blame myself for being unkind, and I've been full and hungry for 3 years for many years. Damn, thanks to my own progress, I saved up some belongings. Otherwise I would have to wonder if the family has been a poor ghost who can't move its nest." Qin Pingon smiled and said, "According to the book, if a poor ghost enters the house, it can also prevent disasters, and once the poor ghost can be invited out one day in the future, it is easy to ask God to send God, so as long as we get together, well, it's good to go. Maybe there will be no luck." The boy in Zhu Yi let out a snort. "It seems that this kid has read a few serious books," he said with surprise. "The imperial examination system is not good, so I have to settle for the next best thing. I have read too many miscellaneous books." Qin Pingon nodded and said, "It's always good to read more books. As the old saying goes, you read to this life in your previous life and you read to your next life in this life. That's probably the old principle." The boy in Zhu Yi said suddenly, "I can see that the sun is also a sentimental person." Qin Pingon raised his head and asked with a smile, Is this all obvious? The little guy raised his hand and pointed to his eyes. I have always been very accurate in seeing people. Qin Pingon smiled and said, by the way, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Qin Pingon. The boy in Zhou Yi raised a palm, shook it vigorously and laughed. I turned over the fish scale book of the household, and there are at least the number of people with this name in the state city. Qin Pingon smiled knowingly and nodded, good thing. Once upon a time this name was in Huaihuang County and there was nothing. Afterwards the little guy rode the white flower snake. Qin Pingon walked fast with him, chatted with the boy in red clothes and did not idle, wandering to the gate of his own mountain. The boy in Zhou Yi jumped off his back and promised with the confidant and love general of the Chiduan mountain landlord, old rules, I will write you a note in the credit book. The head of the white-flowered snake touched the ground, saying goodbye to the noble second-in-command of the state city god temple, then twisting its body and winding along the mountain road, disappearing for a moment. The boy in Zhou Yi rubbed his hands together, he smiled and said, when it is successfully shaped in the future, maybe it will still be a beautiful woman who wants something. Qin Pingon teased, you and Daoist Xianwei will definitely be able to chat. The boy in Zhou Yi changed color suddenly and said solemnly, how do you know that the gatekeeper of Luopa Mountain is Dao Master Xianwei? If you remember correctly, I never mentioned this to you. Damn, don't bring a troublemaker to Luopa Mountain, that is, the crotch is covered with yellow mud, you need to know about accounting. Pei Duozhu is the patriarch who founded the school. Qin Pingon smiled and said, don't be nervous, it's all your own. At the door, Xianwei hurriedly rolled up a book and quickly hid it in his sleeves. Meteor strode over and made a stern look at the head of the road. I have seen Qin Shanju. Qin Pingon smiled and said, it's hard work. The boy in red clothes stood on the spot frowning. Wei Xian sneered and said, why when you know Shanju Qin you don't take trails seriously? The boy in Zhou Yi said timidly, Daoist Xianwei, who is Master Qin Shan? Xianwei glanced at Qin Pingon and Qin Pingon smiled and said, he didn't believe it but we chatted very well along the way. Xianwei didn't bother to care about the uncle who looked like a wine mug. He lowered his voice and said, Master Qin Shan, I have to tell you something. I declare in advance that I am not someone who likes to complain. Qin Pingon nodded and said, speak directly. Xianwei turned his head and glanced at the mountain road and then said, not long ago a guest came to the mountain. She looked like a little girl, her name was Xiego. Does the mountain owner know about this? Qin Pingon nodded, I know Miss Xie is here to look for Xiaomo. Not long ago I had already met her at Qilong Lane and she has a relatively distinctive personality. Xianwei sighed, Mr. Mo is so knowledgeable, how can he have such a generous friend? The two walked towards the bamboo chairs at the entrance of the mountain. The boy in red robes rushed out one by one, and a fierce tiger descended the mountain full of momentum, dashing for a distance, jumping high on top of one of the bamboo chairs, rolling a few times and then again. Lying there he wiped his sleeves vigorously, not forgetting his breath, and then wiped again. The last one rolled off the bamboo chair, which can be said to be smooth and smooth. At first glance he had learned art from Qin Lingjun's teacher. After the little guy stood on the ground he bowed, the mountain master sir, please take a seat. Qin Pingon thanked the little guy and sat on the bamboo chair. What do you say? What did Miss Xie do? Xianwei actually regretted bringing up this matter and always felt that it was inappropriate, so why bother? What if that Xiego is Mr. Xiaomo's family relative or a junior from Shanmen? It's just that the girl in the sable hat did things inappropriately and bullied the worm tree and Xianwei couldn't bear it. Qin Pingon patted the chair and invited the little guy standing on the ground with a smile. Sit together? The boy in Zhou Yi was confused for a while. I have a small and take up too much space, so I want sit. Qin Pingon didn't force the other party either. He turned his head and said to Xianwei, let's talk, just think that the old cook told me the situation in advance, and it has nothing to do with Xianwei Daoist. Xianwei nodded and reminded, okay, but don't let Mr. Mo misunderstand me. I think I'm a talkative woman who likes to gossip. Now in Brother Daifeng's house, Xianwei still offers a pair of sneakers woven by Mr. Mo's own hands. It is very valuable at first glance. Whereas Xianwei willing to wear it, occasionally wearing it on his feet, pacing the house, learning from that real Taoist stalker, there is really that kind of feeling of flying through the clouds and driving the fog. That is, Xianwei has a thin skin, otherwise he has to ask Mr. Xiaomo for an extra pair. Qin Pingon leaned against the back of the chair, stretched out, and listened to Xianwei saying something about what Xiego had done. Hearing it was what Bai Jinghui did, he would never wrong her. Qin Pingon turned his head and glanced at the steps. Why didn't you see Miss Sun practicing boxing? Xianwei said. She went home, but she hasn't returned yet. The boy in Jui was not idle, he was busy making up for it quietly, and silently wiped the legs of the chair as big as a beam with his sleeves. Qin Pingon didn't know how to persuade this little guy. He couldn't help but feel that the feng shui of his family was really extraordinary. After thinking about it over the years, he might really want to go back to the source. It's probably all thanks to Mr. Pei Qian. It can be considered that the blue is better than the blue. According to the established route, Fengyuan ferry will probably arrive at Nujiadu in the next 2 days. Hongxia and Yunzi, who were dug up by Cui Dongshan, will follow the ferry to travel to Beiju Luzhou, and finally settle down at Xindu Mountain to participate in the excavation of Dadu. As if this was their first official tour. Qin Lingjun and Guizhujiu had participated in the opening ceremony of the Huangliang sect. Since they were invited to serve as worshippers, they would return to Luopao Mountain soon after visiting the capital of Mengliang Kingdom. The accompanying Li Huai and Nin Daoist will probably come and settle here together, and then go to Dasui Shanaya Academy. Qin Pingon is going to talk to Nin Daoist about Dadu on Tongyi's Hao. I have already sent a message to Mrs. Yan Yan. The mountain monarch of Jiui Mountain in the Middle Earth personally invited her to be a guest on the mountain. With Mrs. Yan Yan's temper, she would not refuse this matter. There are 2.5 flowers, one is in Jiui Mountain, and the old owner of the plum garden, now because of the identity of a genealogy enshrined by the Dragon Elephant Sword sect, has returned to Hauran from the inverted mountain, and she will walk the world again. Of course there are no taboos. Earlier, at the Chiduan Mountain Temple, I talked to Song Yuzhong about the new kiln superintendent who took over Chao Jiangxin's position. The official 4th grade named Jian Feng seemed to be a little bookish. Song Yuzhong, who was separated by an officialdom up and down the mountain, and Dong Shuijing, who had dealt with Jian Feng once, all had a good impression of this disgraced Jian Duzhao. Wu Yuan has been silent for many years in the Dali officialdom, sitting on the bench for many years, never wanted to kill a beautiful carbine, and now he has become the prefect of Xinchu Prefecture, and he has become a genuine official of the frontier. The gossip of some people who are good officials must be indispensable. In the past, Wu Yuan's identity outside the official circle was not only the son-in-law of the Yuan family of Shangzhou Kingdom, but also a student of the national teacher Cui Yu. Before Qin Pingon was on the Changpu River in the capital of Dali, Si Jingquan, the former Qing official of the Ministry of Household, who had a meal of vegetarian wine, is now also the county governor of Baoshi County outside Beijing. I heard that Sun Chu, the prelude class of Honglu Temple, was the same year as Chao Qingqing in the imperial examination. Yuan Bai still stayed in the Huangshan sword sect, who was descending from Xingyang Mountain, and did not agree to go to Tongye Continent. I just don't know if that alley outside the Yun building, that Master Lu Xianxia has stopped anyone recently. Qin Pingon put away his thoughts and asked with a smile, Xianwei, how is your practice? Xianwei looked embarrassed and he said, I can't eat hot tofu in a hurry and I don't want to be quick in practice. It's better to go step by step. But in fact, if you can really eat a bowl of hot tofu, your realm will rise, not to mention a few bowls, and directly give a big bowl to the poor. It's just that Xianwei then thought about it. The realm is high. What is the meaning? The middle 5 realms, then the land gods, the upper 5 realms. This road, when will it be good? It is not good to be a gatekeeper. You have to be like yourself. You can be less troublesome if you are afraid of trouble. As for cultivation, let the true Taoist priests who are pursuing the perfection of merit and virtue go to work. As a fake Taoist priest, it is more important to read books. With a flash of sword light, Xiao Emo appeared here out of thin air. He stayed in the town all these days and he had to stare at Bai Jing from Qilong Lane, lest she make another noise. Seeing his son, Xiao Emo hesitated. Qin Pingon said in his heart, the reason why I have a heart outside is because. Xiao Emo was stunned for a moment and said, you don't need to say it, son. Practicing swords. Maybe the dojo is out of the sky. As for how to refine the sword, Xiao Emo didn't ask. Previously in the eddy current of the long river of time, because of chatting about a certain martial art that was purely fantasy, Qin Pingon suddenly smiled and said, we need to add another person, the chief worship Wu Shuangjiang. The white-haired boy was eager to try. Ancestor hidden official? Qin Pingon nodded and said, then add one more. The last feast is enshrined, the Taoist name is natural and the pseudonym is Kong Ho. A sect, there are not a few pairs of immortal couples, it is really outrageous. At that time Xiago disapproved and said, since it is said that it is if, what's the point of talking about this? Qin Pingon smiled and said, although this is only the best choice in some people's minds. But if Daoist Xianwei was present he would not feel that way. Xiago rolled his eyes and said, how can you compare with him? Bai Jing, who has always been arrogant, rarely admit defeat like this. If this sect is just a hypothesis, then there is another mountain, but it is real. For example, the suzerain Qin Pingon and the Taoist Ning Yao. In the Patriarch's Hall there are Tui Dongshan, Jiang Shangzhen, Xiaomo and Miyu. Zhou Xian on the right side of Sui Tongqiu and Cui Wei. Riding a Kong Ho in Dragon Alley, Ting Tong in Zanyala. The younger generation has Pei Qian and Chao Qingqing. Tai Wu by Xian King Sun Chun. Before Qin Pingon set off to climb the mountain, he squatted down and smiled with the boy in red clothes. I will discuss with Pei Qian and the others about the new establishment of the General Guardian of Qilong Lane. I personally recommend you to take up this position. Zhu Yitong, who had not made 100 times at Dianmao, was so excited that he murmured repeatedly, how can he be, how can he be? It is almost the same as the words and demeanor carved out of the same mold as Chief Shou at Jiaisfeng Patriarch Hall back then. This kind of unique talent is indeed inferior. Qin Pingon smiled and asked, go up the mountain together? The boy in Zhu Yi shook his head vigorously. I have to go to the Daoist Master Xianwei's house first to order a painting. The subordinates have short calves which are easy to delay, so I want to accompany the mountain master to climb the mountain. Then Qin Pingon and Xiao Emo slowly climbed the mountain together. Xianwei tooted his tongue in admiration and said, where did you learn your skills? Come back and teach me? The boy in Zhu Yi put his hands on his hips, raised his head and stared at him. He's a fairy captain. He is extremely arrogant. The mountain master is still in front of him. You don't have a right way to hang around with me. Don't make me misunderstood by the mountain master. Qin Pingon asked, is Bai Jing really used to staying at Qilong Lane? Xiao Emo nodded and said, I've seen young master before but now I'm still honest. I just quarrel with Kong Ho all the time, but I have a good relationship with Zhou Junchen. Qin Pingon smiled and said with a heartfelt voice, this sword training is actually a long trip again, but this time it will take 20,000 years to go backwards. Sword of Coming Chapter 977. The spring breeze is warm and the water is warm. The scenery is beautiful, there are 3 or 2 peach blossoms outside the bamboo on the shore, and the wild mallards in the water are chasing the clear scenery. Wang Zhu and his entourage landed on Tongyi's Hao with water, ready to take a trip to the Yu dynasty, who took the initiative to show hospitality to the Donghai Sea King's mansion. In the end, after walking a few steps, I met this young man in white with red moles on the eyebrows. It was the second time we met each other. The first time we met was in the former site of the Dadu Dragon Palace. The depth of the city is so deep that it is bottomless. Of course, what really makes them jealous is the sword cultivator Little Mo, with yellow hat and blue shoes, calling the young hidden official a son, whose realm is high and unattainable. Wang Zhu and Cui Dongshan have known each other for a long time, and they are half compatriots, so they are used to it, but Gong Yan and Huang Man looked at the man's funny posture, and always felt that this young man's behavior was both disgusting and at the same time. They can also scare people. They are all accomplished Daoists. They used to be heroes in their hometowns in various continents. There are many strange people and strange things on the mountain. One serving. When Cui Dongshan saw that they didn't accept the move, it was as if he had been immobilized. Wang Zhu sneered, isn't Sect Master Cui tired? Cui Dongshan maintained that posture and said sternly, my husband puts one foot on the ground and one hand supports the sky, and then uses a strong iron bone to support the body and skin. I dare not say that I am tired. Hero, the white jade pillar holding the sky and the sea purple golden beam, he will spare no effort. Wang Zhu's eyes were cold. Cui Dongshan, it's almost enough. If you have something to say, if you have nothing to give way, I don't have time to accompany you here to waste time. I have something to do, how can I be okay? The head of the sect is very busy. Not only did I accompany a Luoyang wooden guest to stroll across the Rin River, this journey is easy to walk and it is very hard to sleep in the wind. Cui Dongshan's face was full of resentment. He put away the fist pile, and just as his feet landed he raised his foot again, kicked a stone on the bank and swept toward the river surface, Smashing into the water with a rumbling sound, the water surface rumbled. Like thunder, a group of wild mallards fluttered and flew in an instant. Cui Dongshan twisted his wrist and conjured a green bamboo stick with a Xing Qi Ming inscribed in running script. This walking stick was a gift from Wu Shuangjiang on the night cruise ship. Cui Dongshan originally planned to give it to Chai Wu. It is regarded as a congratulatory gift for stepping up to the heaven and entering the realm of jade purity. It is only a matter of repentance and it is reused. It is well treasured, or it is used as a family heirloom for future closed disciples, or it is given to those who may come to my Chaofeng to practice. Zhao Luan, since he was carrying A to dig the corner of Luopao Mountain, he wouldn't mind being charged more by Mr. Cui, so Cui Dongshan found Chai Wu, and Bai Xian dubbed Xiaomu and Yuna. The little girl who loves to drink, made a discussion and asked her if she wanted this priceless green bamboo stick, or if he gave away 100 jars of Xianxia wine in his own name, and he ensured that each jar of wine had the same name. At that time Chai Wu's eyes suddenly lit up, saying that 100 altars is too much and 50 altars is enough. The implication of the little girl couldn't be simpler, the big drink is the biggest. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, Miss Shigue, there is a distinguished guest from Luapa Mountain. My husband must return to his hometown immediately, so he will return after the celebration, and there is no way to treat the guest in person. Wang Zhu said with an expressionless face, Little Xia Shuifu is alone overseas, and I don't dare to ask Qin Yingguan to entertain it in person. Cui Dongshan said solemnly, You can't say that. Miss Shigue and my husband are neighbors who have met for many years at the end of the day. Distant relatives are not as good as close neighbors. What a lot of fate and affection. Wang Zhu twitched the corners of his mouth and said nothing more. Last time Wang Zhu, who left the site of the Dragon Palace in Dadu and returned to Qin Pingon, never mentioned Cui Dongshan's insider identity with several squires of the Waterhouse after the event, only said that this person was from Aquarius, and he was on the side of the Dali court. As an official, Cui Dongshan entered the Lizhu cave, which had not yet been broken and fell to the ground, and then somehow became a student of Qin Pingon. Wang Zhu's words were too simplistic. Of course Gong Yan and the others sent Wang Zhu away with just one sentence. Talking more about Cui Dongshan is useless. If you know more it will cause unnecessary trouble. Not long ago, Donghai Mansion received an espionage report that Luopao Mountain established a sect named Qingping Sword Sect in the southern boundary of the Deyuan dynasty, and Cui Dongshan served as the first sect master. Cui Dongshan waved his walking stick, greeted them one by one and took the initiative to be courteous. Sister Jigui is really a prophet. I will come to find you sooner or later. I'm familiar with the Yu dynasty that changed its era name to Shenlong. If I don't brag, I can be regarded as half the host when it comes to Luojing. You can't believe it now anyway, you'll know when you go, such as Jitsue. The real protector of the country, Lu Bilong, and I are close friends on the mountain, and the Qingzhuan faction, the leader of the Immortal mansion on the mountain of the Yu dynasty, is half of his own family. How could the relationship be bad? Especially that Dai Yuan, he is also a good brother who chops chicken heads and burns yellow paper. Gong Yan smiled and said, Sect Master Cui has so many friends. Cui Dongshan nodded and said, It is necessary, rely on friends when you go out. As long as there are many friends in the rivers and lakes, you can keep 9 meals a day. This old boy Dai Yuan seems to have known him since he met him. He had a drink under the grape racks of the Luojing Lantern Riddle Hall, which sold in Jinwo, and this guy has grown up. Zhang Li was considered to have replaced Su Bai, the direct disciple of Gao Shuan. Dai Yuan was a Jindan cultivator after all, and his name was justified. In addition, Dai Yuan was on the Yu dynasty side, and the ranking of the royal family's enshrinement was also improved. Flowering. At that time, the chief guest of Xialongqiu who drank together, the old Yuan Ingzhang Luzhu with the Taoist name Daffodil, now goes by the pseudonym Xianxia, and went to the Dachong dynasty to serve as an assistant to a young man. He is a young but famous person. The servant of the Ministry of Industry, named Shi Yuyan. The minister of the Ministry of Punishment belongs to an old man who has a son, and has high hopes for Shi Yuyan. From the name he chose for his son, he preaches Yuda and speaks art. As soon as the Lantern Riddle Hall left, Cui Dongshan once used the body of the Yangshan, the direct descendant of the Yunkatang in Pushan, to go to Zhang Luzhu, and also met the teacher and servant, and the two sides hit it off. Da Li accompanied the capital, named Luo Jing, which was related to Song Mu's title of Luo Wang. The capital of the Yu dynasty in Tongisao was also called Luojing. Of course it was just a coincidence. With the current momentum of the Dali court, coupled with the Yu dynasty's rudder, even if it is not in one continent, it is estimated that it will not be a problem for the former to change the name of the latter. Cui Dongshan said that he wanted to take them to a place not far away in the middle of the wind and clouds, and only needed 3 sticks of incense. On the way to ride the wind, the boy in white stepped on the green bamboo stick like a sword, turned his head to get close to Gong Yan and said, "Sister Awu, I listened to you chatting before and I listened to the words of my sister the most and would not miss it. One word, since my sister wants to go to Huaihuang County to take a look. Why is it difficult? I will lead the way later. Why don't we make an appointment now?" Gong Yan turned a deaf ear and Cui Dongshan turned to chat with others. "Brotherly Ba, you look so old and strong. Then Wanyan Laojing and you are a long-term friend. I heard that it is a relationship between a teacher and a friend. He used to be your Jinjiasu. Talking beautifully on the mountain. It's all right, life is going on. How can there be a time when you don't have a few somersaults? Since the hometown is a sad place, it's fine if you don't go back, and one day in the future you can get together with Miss Jigui and settle down on our Tongi's house side. Well, if you go to Aquarius you can also go to Aquarius. I have more friends over there. I will return to my old business and become a national teacher in a certain court in the south." The old man has a long-term ambition and it is not a good talk. "Brotherly Ba, does that make you feel better?" Li B's face was gloomy, and he was in a better mood when someone poked his heart in front of him. The name Wanyan Laojing, even Huang Man and Gong Yan, did not dare to mention it on Li B's side. "Brother Shimon, do you want to have a fight with 1 or 2 Zhijing warriors? If you have this intention I can help introduce you for a trivial matter. Now there are just 2 in Tongisao, and it's a coincidence that they are all mine. Friends, based on my friendship with Brother Shimon I will spare no effort, but I will also help you build a bridge and ask for 2 boxings to train each other's martial arts. Shimon, the peak martial artist of the 9 realms, with the roots of the Tao, is a land dragon in Liuxia continent, and that Liuxia continent with average martial arts used to have 2 ending martial artists, but now there is only 1 because of the qualifications of the one. The better and higher-achieving Grand Master, named Yi Kuo, once hurried across the continent to the battlefield in the middle of Jinjiazu to kill the demon with his fists, so he fell. So the Middle-earth Divine Continent, which has liked Song Fuss characters the most in recent years, has a cynical statement about Liuxia continent. As for Luxiazu in the northwest, in terms of military exploits, the mountain is not as good as the mountain, and in terms of courage the old is not as good as the young. Sweeping a piece of the former with a stick is equivalent to scolding all the monks on the mountain, including the immortal Qinzhao and all the monks on the mountain. As for the latter, it only targets one person. It is the old martial artist who is known as, after entering the top, ask boxing at the same level without failure, the first person in Luxiazu martial arts. The reason why he has not lost a boxing, of course, is because he will no longer ask people for boxing after he is in the top 10. But it's not the kind of people who wash their hands in a golden bowl and quit the arena, so that Yi Ku didn't even have the idea of asking this person. But Yi Ku, like Han Guanghu, the martial artist of Jinjiazu, who fell a little from the top of the mountain, received an invitation to participate in the discussion from the Zhongtu Confucian temple but declined. Shimon wondered. Apart from Huang Yiyun in Pushan, Wu Shu, the sage of Wu, is also in Tongisao? Didn't he go to the wild world? Some confidential Shui Mansion newspapers will be sent directly from the Zhongtu Confucian temple, so they are more well-informed than ordinary sections. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, "Let me sell it first, lest brotherly Bobby in a moody mood after hearing this, frowning and not showing a happy face. Brother Huang Man, you deserve to be known as a jade Daoist. He is really talented and beautiful like jade. Someday in the future, when the Mishue peak of Xindu Mountain will open in the mirror, we must invite Brother Huang Man to show the beauty. Face." Thanks to Zhang Tiaoxia of the Dao named Longbo who got it and greeted Brother Huang Man, the weight of the fists and feet of the #1 martial artist in the world. TSK brother, I feel pain for Brother Huang Man when I think about it. Huang Man smiled and said, "It seems that the words of Cui sect master still carry more weight." Cui Dongshan patted his chest and said, "A scholar speaks with reason and words will never fail." Gong Yan smiled charmingly. This beautiful woman was nicknamed A Wu. She was dressed in palace clothes. Comb the cloud bun and slant away the golden steps. Gong Yan only needs to put on a little makeup and she is already a national beauty. On both sides of her slender waist, there is an ancient bronze mirror and a crystal. Its It's no wonder that Huang Man often jokes that it's a pity not to be an empress. Men in this world, young and ignorant of the word chubby, turn their eyes only on the bowtie's face and miss a lot of charm in vain. To say that the skin is outstanding as a man, the immortal Huang Man is actually not inferior to the woman Gong Yan. The men in the novels of the talented and beautiful seem to be carved out of the same mold. They are nothing more than the faces that are like powder, the eyebrows are drawn into the temples, and the trees are facing the wind. Seeing that the boy in white started to act as a demon again. On the way to ride the wind, a thick sea of clouds appeared in front of him. I saw the big white goose, its body turned upside down, the whole person turned forward, and the big sleeves of both hands were swaying forward, and a layer of clouds was casually pushed aside. Shimon concentrated his voice and said, "It's really hard to stay with this guy. I really don't know how Chen Pingon can stand this kind of student." Gong Yan said with a heartfelt smile, "I heard Sect Master Nalen mention the young hidden official earlier, and the evaluation was interesting, saying that Chen Pingon is a stuffy gourd full of bad water. He usually seems to be taciturn, but in fact his mind is full of calculations, but generally speaking it's still easy to talk as long as you don't provoke him. With such a gentleman, if you find another person who doesn't like to talk, wouldn't it be relatively silent? If you want to say me, you really have to look for Cui Dongshan's escape and liveliness, yes, to reconcile the twilight and vigor between the students, Mr. Harmony." Li Ba suddenly interjected and said, "You are all wrong. On the contrary, the one who is really energetic is the young hidden official who seems to be quiet, who can be called the deep-hearted and sullen, but it is actually this cynical Cui. Sect Master, the former can always maintain an optimistic attitude when looking at the world, while the latter is downright pessimistic, and the two sides are extremes in each other." Huang Man smiled and said, "Li Ba is very accurate in seeing people." A group of people crossed the sea of clouds, and the road between the clouds was like a high wall of snow on both sides. Cui Dongshan glanced at the young man who was following behind, who was given the name Wang Qiongju by Wang Zhu, the word Yusha and the road name Hansu. In short, except for the surname, everything else was related to Shui. Recommendation: Chasing Books is really easy to use. Download it here and you can try it. In the team, Wang Qiongju had no sense of existence, and was used by Wang Zhu as a coolie, carrying a bag on his shoulder and carrying large and small packages. The boy's forehead was slightly raised and he was just refining his shape. Among the 5 opportunities in Lizidongshan in the past, he didn't talk about their respective fates, but only talked about the level of their realm. Four-legged snake is not on the top of the table and it is still in the state of Dongfu. Does this have to be enough to eat enough to be reduced to such a field? The only thing that can be said is the big purple-skinned gourd that Wang Qiongju is carrying with the word catch and release in ancient seal script. Cui Dongshan retracted his gaze and began to ramble. "Sister A Wu, you really don't plan to go to the Yulong sect? You and Sect Master Nalen are old acquaintances anyway. With this level of personal friendship you can find a chief guest effortlessly. Being a sloppy person who doesn't care about the sky or the land regardless of the sect master, if you don't work hard to get a salary, don't you feel at ease? This is such a good thing that even I am envious." The younger brother thinks that Fairy Yun Xian, who has a weak personality, will only welcome her when she sees Sister A Wu. Since Yun Xian was willing to take the initiative to step down as the suzerain before and run to be a worthy of the name of the law, she must be the arrival of her sister, let alone it's the chief guest secretary, and there are 2. It is estimated that it will not be difficult to abdicate again and let the virtuous, and let Sister A Wu come to be the head of the sect. By the way, there is such a day and I will bother Sister A Wu to be a month old, and say that I am willing to be the chief guest secretary of the Rain Dragon sect. The salary is easy to say and the meaning is what it means. Besides, the Yulong sect is much closer to the Fuyao continent than the Donghai Sea mansion or the Aquarius continent's capital, and the mansion of the vassal King Songmu is much closer to the Fuyao continent. Right now, the elder sister's sect doesn't get along very well. Besides, according to the rules of the Confucian Temple, if there is no new Jade Pure Realm cultivator in the next 100 years, then the title of Zong will be lost. Sister A Wu really bears the heart to see the teacher's family fall into the rut. Wang, the second year is not as good as 1 year. I went to the Yulong sect and the younger generation encountered something on the Fuyao continent. As long as my sister is quicker in the wind, you don't need to spend the incense that you have saved there, and you can settle the matter by yourself. So, it seems that when Yulongzong is in charge of the Patriarch of the Law and protects the Old Master, he sits in the patriarchal hall with his younger brother, the chief guest, and listens to the discussions, and at the same time helps the Yulongzong to form an alliance with our Qingping swordsmen in one fell swoop. Santo, a fool wouldn't do it. Gong Yan was full of slander. This guy is a roundworm in his stomach, he knows everything clearly. The boy in white sighed, his eyes complaining. This metaphor is inappropriate. The roundworms are so disgusting, my brother. I am Sister A was close-fitting padded jacket. Huang Man sneered, this metaphor is probably even more disgusting. Gong Yan made up his mind not to speak. She is also daring and pungent, and it is nothing to say a few dirty words. On the Fuyao continent, Gong Yan was once known as a stunner on the mountain, and she never thought that she could not match a juvenile. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, one day I will let Chef Zhu, Brother Dofeng, Chief Shou and Chief Mi, a few of them get together and chat with Sister Awu. That will be good. Cui Dongshan quickly added a sentence and vowed, guarantee to be both meat and well-rounded, elegant and vulgar. Wang Zhu said indifferently, Sect Master Cui, let's get down to business. Cui Dongshan raised his palm to cover his forehead, looked into the distance and said with a smile, I'll be there soon. I'll have the strength to talk about things when I've had enough to eat and drink. Wang Zhu followed Cui Dongshan's line of sight and saw a green and winding mountain range, like a green snake winding above the earth. She thought about it and had a little memory of this dragon vein on the west coast of Tongye continent and running north-south, but it was a pity that in order to make way for the diverted Dadu, a waterway was ordered by the Dadu Dragon Lord to dig out a waterway, which cut off the complete land dragon energy. As a result, there is no more prosperous and powerful country on the entire west coast of Tongyi's Hao, and most of them become vassals of the great dynasties. It is said that Jiao breaks open, or it is said to be broken by thunder. Cui Dongshan said with an apologetic smile. The reception was not good, so I can only find a nearby place and invite everyone to a vegetarian meal. The place where he settled down was in a royal gym built by an emperor in the mountains. It was completely destroyed by the demon army before. Not long after the new monarch of the small country was enthroned, he ordered the officials of the Ministry of Industry to find the blueprints, which cost a lot of material and financial resources. The temple is repaired like new, and the rest of the buildings are temporarily unable to build and repair. Dao practitioners who are proficient in looking at the air can see that there are two kinds of clouds in the mountains, red and green, floating and lingering. Cui Dongshan said, the Taoist temple on the mountain, being able to let Sister Jigui stay in it, is really glorious. The old and young Taoist priests in the temple revere incense every day, light the lamp at night, and spend more than a dozen sesame oil every year. This sincerity is finally not in vain. In the vast world, the four newly appointed water monarchs appointed by the Confucian Temple are responsible for the division of towns and four seas, and the newly compiled gods and spirits of the Zhongtu Confucian Temple are from the first grade, which is the same as the rank of the Suishan Great God. The entire world of water transportation was divided into two. Among them, Madame Lushweiking Dandan, whose Taoist name was Qingzhong, was in charge of the land and water transportation of Jiuzhou, but the monks on the mountain did not take her seriously. Except for Wang Zhu, the other three sea lords were promoted step by step from the positions of the water lords of the Great Lakes in various continents, such as Li Yeho, the water lord of Jiaoyue Lake in the Middle Earth continent. In addition, there is a female Hujun Lu Roshi, the Yuanjun of Zhengrong Lake Bishui, who is also the Shujun in charge of the West Sea. And this woman with the Taoist name Bishui Yuanjun used to put up a reward on the wall of the Dashuan Mountain Master's knife room in the early years, targeting the Mo family ranger Su Ruo. The reasons for the twists and turns are unknown to outsiders. Wang Zhu narrowed his eyes and looked into the distance and suddenly said, Sect Master Cui didn't spend any less money over there? Cui Dongshan rubbed his hands and said, fortunately it's just a little Guyu money drizzle. This place is called Hailong Mountain. When the weather is clear, blue sky and cloudless, you can see the sea from the top of the mountain. Watching the sunrise on the sea is a must. Besides, 3,000 years ago when the dragons in the world were the most beautiful, there were many dragons in the Dada Dragon Palace. Water ministers walking clouds and rain, many will cross this place to and from the sea and land. The big dragon rain will come out of this cloud and moon, swept across the earth in thousands of miles of water and gallop in the blue sky. As a take advantage of spending money to help rebuild the Taoist temple, Cui Dongshan not only built a loft to watch the sky at night in the Taoist temple, but also secretly built a special one to measure the flow trend of the East Sea, and to investigate the future water transportation of Dadu into the sea. It can be seen that Cui Dongshan has long been sure that his husband will dig a big ditch in Tongyi's Hao, and he plans for a rainy day, but that's all. There were already 2 people waiting in the mountain, standing at the entrance of the newly built but ancient Taoist temple, but they were all outsiders from the Taoist temple in the mountains. Qingping Sword Sect is in charge of Jianxiu Cui Wei, and Jing Xingfeng's first peak leader Chao Qingqing. The former belonged to Cui Dongshan to be a strong man, but the latter is the key to success. It's here, I'll step on it first and you can follow. Cui Dongshan took the lead in hurrying, and suddenly his figure traveled several miles away and fell to the ground. Chao Qingqing bowed in a straightforward manner and said, I have seen Sect Master Cui. If there were no outsiders present, Chao Qingqing would only call senior brother Cui. Cui Dongshan shook his sleeves and said helplessly, Junior brother Chao, it's better to learn more about Cui Zhang's rules. You don't have to let me go when you see me. We are still brothers, so we don't need to show the rules to outsiders. Chao Qingqing smiled and said, It's a rule for myself. Cui Dongshan had a headache for a while. Don't talk. I'll talk about business with people later. You can act according to senior brother's eyes. In fact, Chao Qingqing didn't know who he wanted to see when he was called here by senior brother Cui until just now. Cui Dongshan rubbed his face with his hands and waited for Wang Zhu and his group to land. Although Na Shiman was a pure martial artist, he didn't know much about cultivation, but as long as he showed the real body of an unearthed dragon, he only said that he was a coolie who moved mountains and unloaded mountains. As for the Jade Daoist Huang man, calling for wind and rain is his specialty. Ordinary cultivators really can't provoke Zhang Tiaoxia. This old martial artist who has been on the top of the world's martial arts for many years, never easily conflict with others. But as long as the shot it is not light. Approaching the Taoist temple in the mountain, Huang Man suddenly asked in a heartfelt voice, Li Ba, you and I join forces plus Shiman to support 3-1, can you? As for Gong Yan, forget it, she's destined to be unable to shout. This woman doesn't care about anything other than making money. Li Ba shook his head and said, Don't be impulsive, you shouldn't have a grudge with this person. Shiman really didn't like this sect Master Cui of the Shinto Taoism, he just felt uncomfortable. But rather than asking about boxing, Shiman really had no idea, so Li Ba didn't agree to the invitation of Taoist Jade, which made Shiman relieved. The group came to the gate of the mountain. Cui Wei was indifferent as always with facial paralysis. Chao Qingqing looked warm and bowed. Qingping Zhenzong Jinxing Feng Chao Qingqing, I have seen Dong Heijin and all the senior immortal masters. Wang Zhu nodded with a smile. I was in the capital of Dali and I borrowed several of your imperial examination papers. They were well written and the words were well written. Chao Qingqing smiled and said, My husband has given me a lot of advice on the knowledge of craftsmanship. Wang Zhu was non-committal about this, but compared to the coldness when she was with Cui Dongshan, facing Chao Qingqing the junior, her face was a little softer at the moment. Gong Yan and Shiman looked at each other. Damn, finally met a normal person. They came to the Taoist temple together and the meals were already prepared. When Wang Zhu and Cui Dongshan raised their chopsticks at the same time, everyone let go and ate. Cui Dongshan mentioned that Tong Yezhou intends to dig a great ditch. As one of the initiators, Qingping Zhenzong sincerely invites Wang Zhu and Dong Heifu to help and participate in it. Contrary to the expectations of Gong Yan and the others, Wang Zhu agreed very readily. They can't be more clear about the character of the master. Because of the water-holding darts, the high-ranking water gods in the world have appeared a lot, not to mention Li Yeho, a close neighbor who needs to deal with often, even the Mrs. Dandin who has appeared a few times. Wang Zhu has seen it. There is no good face. During the 2 discussions with Wang Zhu, most of them were Mrs. Tundun with a smiling face. However, it was in Cui Dongshan's expectation. I mentioned this to my husband earlier. In the words of my husband, if Cui Dongshan came forward, it was only about business affairs, not private affairs, and it was just business and business, then this matter was successful. The possibility of it being more than 80%, it can be said that if Qin Pingan came to reminisce with Wang Zhu, it will become the possibility of failure, which is more than 80%. Obviously, Qin Pingan has a good grasp of Wang Zhu's temper. The excavation of Dadu was a profitable business for Wang Zhu without any harm. But for Wang Zhu, since Dadu will definitely appear, she can't take action. whether she wants to or not depends only on her mood. This kind of choice is similar to that of Qing Tong, who just wanted to lie down and enjoy the happiness before. On the surface it is similar, but there are still some differences. Qing Tong is because of his own selfishness and does not want a sword cultivator to be regarded by her as his own territory. Tong Yezhou, who had meddled too much, Wang Zhu was just lazy. Relying on a brand new dadu connecting the land of Tongye continent and the waters of the East China Sea, the various water gods of the whole Tongye continent will be based on the original foundation, and lower this East Sea Lord. In the past the two sides had different identities and had to respect Wang Zhu, but after all there was a difference between land and sea, and then there was the lifeline of water transportation. More or less they would all be held by Wang Zhu. In short, just wait for dadu together. Wang Zhu can completely use this surging water potential across the continent to allocate the entire central boundary of Tongye continent to the area under the jurisdiction of the East China Sea. Therefore, after Cui Dongshan briefly introduced various allies, he said, Donghai Mansion must give a sum of money first, no less than 4,000 grain rain money from Baozhai. If you are willing to give more, of course better, the more the better. In addition, I also have to borrow Huangman and Shiman. They help to move rivers and mountains respectively. On the premise of not delaying the water gods escorting darts, as soon as the two sides have free time, they need to rush to Tongyi's Hao land Dianmao immediately. As for the size of the specific credit, we will clearly settle accounts and record them in the temporarily set up Patriarch's Hall. It is agreed in advance that Huangman and Shiman will be specially responsible for the excavation and dredging of a section of the Dadu riverbed. The specific length can be turned back. Let's chat slowly and let's make a general direction today. Huangman and Shiman looked at each other and they were speechless, only smiling bitterly. I was just chatting about whether to join forces to beat this boy in white. The retribution is coming so soon? Wang Zhu said, 4,000? No problem, I can add another 10,000 guyu money. Cui Dongshan had just picked up a chopstick to fasten his dishes. When he heard the words, his wrists trembled and he almost fell back to the plate. He took a deep breath, raised his hand and lightly supported the snow-white sleeve that he named Beating Stupid Place. The chicken pecking at the rice said, Okay, that's it, 14,000 grain rain money. Master Cui felt very sad. People are more popular than dead people. I really don't know how many old dragon palaces, immortal palace ruins and sea specialties have been captured by Wang Zhu in the sea over the years. Wang Zhu sarcastically said, Since Sect Master Cui has so many friends on the mountain, why don't you just ask more people to pay for the shortage? Cui Dongshan laughed and said, You have 14,000 guyu money from Miss Jigue to make a final decision. It's enough. After all, borrowing money owes favor, so the more the better. In the business field, the same amount of immortal money, for example, Baozhai and Zhangji, casually took out 4,000 pieces of grain rain money, and Lu Lao Xianxian of Qinghu Palace in Qingjing Mountain, smashed pots and sold iron to get 4,000 pieces of grain rain money. Look, it's the same amount up, but for that business it's a completely different concept because when Lu Yong gave money he just gave money, but Zhangji didn't. Since he was going to make money he would give money. More intangible resources such as contacts and connections are spent on more money, and Zhangji's burden is still like this, not to mention Liu's and Aizhou. Cui Dongshan continued, It will definitely be a long-term task to dig out a dungeon with stable water transportation, and it will not be completed in a few years. I have to trouble the water government to recruit a group of officials and subordinates who are capable of general affairs, at least 30 people, and then many Narcissus, shrimp soldiers and crab generals are dispatched, with a minimum number of 30,000, and when the water escorts the darts to an end, they will all pass through the waterway at the mouth of the sea and move inland with the water. In short, they can do whatever they can. It was also secretly instructed by Mr. Wang Zhu to do business with Wang Zhu. You just open the price higher or lower and she may find it uninteresting. The 4 sea kings who each govern all water transportation around the land of the 2 continents, then the height of the golden body in the future, the level of essence, the key depends on the 4 colleagues of Shuijun, who can reach the land side within the rules of the Confucian Temple. The room for operation is extremely limited, extremely limited. The Shengazong where Tianjun Qijin is seated, the Fengshua Temple and Jingwu Mountain are 2 military ancestral homes, the Jiang family in Yunlin which is located at the mouth of Chidu into the sea and Luopao Mountain. Yangshan, Yangxiashan etc. Chidu already has 2 Marquis of Dadu, Marquis of Changchun Yanghua and Marquis Lili Chao Yong, besides Weibo Jinqing Fan Junmao and Yuetian monarchs of one continent, not to mention the land of half continents is the territory of the Dali court. On the other hand, in Tongyi's Hao, the East Sea Mansion obviously has a lot to do. The more the mountains and rivers are broken here, the old immortal mansions have declined or moved to the colorful world, or it is difficult to mend the old hilltop of the Teacher's Gate or relocate. In fact, the only sects who took action were Yuguazong, the head snake, and Qingping Jianzong, who crossed the river. Wang Zhu and Shuifu intervened in land and water transportation affairs. Not only did they not violate the Confucian temple etiquette rules, but they could accumulate merit, so Huang Man and Shiman just now. Neither of them would ask Wang Zhu what he meant. The two of them were sure to go to work as coolies. Cui Dongshan said with a smile, I have to say that first there are differences between land and sea, and the customs are different. In the future, when we join forces to excavate Dadu, some conflicts are inevitable. In the future, officials of the water government will go ashore to participate in the discussion in the council hall, and each will hold his own opinion. It doesn't matter if you quarrel, you can even go out for a fight, but it's better not to cause any fatalities, otherwise it will be difficult to end. Aizhou Lu Zhangji's Baozhai. In fact, it is easy to say that there is a unique golden signboard in the world, not to mention Lu Jubao and Zhangji's way of manipulating people, both of which are famous in the world. I believe there is nothing to make trouble. One moth, only Wang Zhu's waterhouse has the most variables. Wang Zhu said, then let Chao Qingqing be in charge of the specific matters with Shuifu. If there is a problem, it is better to ventilate in advance and then take it to the council hall to quarrel. Chao Qingqing was a little caught off guard and glanced at Cui Dongshan. Cui Dongshan nodded with a smile. Of course there is no problem, it's settled. Chao Qingqing has just formed pills and is an earth immortal. The matter of going down the mountain can be put on the agenda. Coincidentally, it is not. Then Chao Qingqing can just run a few more times. Going to the Donghai Sea Mansion, familiar with the situation there. It is a long journey by sea. I am afraid that Sui Jun will temporarily lend Chao Qingyang a legendary dragon god cross-sea talisman, lest he spend too much time on the road. Wang Zhu nodded with a smile and took out the long-lost talisman from his sleeve. He said it was a talisman, but it was actually a pocket-sized golden walking dragon. Wang Zhu shook it casually and the band on the talisman was broken, and then gently throw it to Chao Qingqing. You're welcome, I'll give it to you as a congratulations gift to congratulate you on your dan. With this talisman in hand, the monk can enter the water like riding a dragon and walk across the river and the sea. The speed is as fast as that of an immortal. Chao Qingqing caught the talisman with both hands, put it in his sleeves and got up to thank him. Wang Zhu didn't get up, just nodded. Looking at this slightly pedantic young cultivator, she smiled. That Chao Qingqing's manners and etiquette made Gong Yan and several others more and more strange. It was strange, and he was actually a cultivator with a normal mind. Cui Dongshan was deeply moved. This junior brother Chao by his side is indeed one of the two proud students of his husband. He is as lovable as his senior brother and he is popular wherever he goes. Wang Zhu then threw to Cui Dongshan a pen-washed object in the shape of a celadone entwined with a qilong and said, there are 15,000 grain rain coins in it, so just round up the whole number and the extra 1,000 grain rain coins. A mansion can be built near this Taoist temple, and it will be used as one of the summer homes of our water mansion on the bank of Tongyi's Hao. Except for Huangman and Shiman, who are at your command, the temporary patriarch's hall, which is mixed with fish and dragons, only needs to be reserved for Li Ba. A chair is all you need, big and small matters. Li Ba will talk to you here in the waterhouse. His attitude is the meaning of the waterhouse. Cui Dongshan hurriedly put down his chopsticks, took the thing that was right in front of him, raised his sleeves and wiped his mouth. He also stood up like Chao Qingqing and bowed his thanks. Peaceful to make money, having eaten a light vegetarian meal that is not extravagant, Cui Dongshan is about to return to the Lianhe River, and continues to instigate the Luoyang wooden guest named Pang Chao to choose the location on the banks of the Lianhe River, suggesting that Wang Zhu and his party go to Luoyang of the Yu dynasty. Beijing, you must go to Jiquiguan to sit, have a cup of tea and then go to the Lantern Riddle Hall to have a meal. The account can be recorded on the head of Dai Yuan of the Qingzhuan school. From the beginning to the end, Cui Wei the headmaster said nothing. If it wasn't at the dinner table, Cui Dongshan introduced this Cui Zhonglu, whose hometown is the Great Wall of Sword. Qi Huang Man and the others all mistakenly thought that this mute was a local sword cultivator who was deeply hidden in Tong Yezhou, or Cui Dongshan's family worship. Knowing that Cui Wei came from the Great Wall of Sword Qi in addition to Wang Zhu and Gong Yan, it was not only unexpected but also reasonable. With Qin Pin gone as the last hidden official, it was really nothing to bring back a few sword immortals from Howren. First there was Miyu who shined on the battlefield of the old Dragon City, and then there was the unsmiling Cui Wei in front of him. He just didn't know the level of Cui Zhang's law and his swordsmanship. Could it be higher than Miyu? Cui Wei still didn't say anything. Cui Dongshan's poking heart outsiders want to poke and his own family will not let it go. Walking out of the hall together, Cui Dongshan stopped under the porch, put his hands in his sleeves and said with a smile, "Sister Zhigui, now Qingping Jinzong owns 2 ferries, and there will be more and more Xianxia ferries belonging to us in the future. Are there any? Interested in making a small business together?" Wang Zhu said, "I'm not short of money, I'm not interested." Cui Dongshan raised his arm, wiped his face with his sleeve and felt aggrieved. These words hurt his feelings, so he shouldn't talk about it more and make fun of himself. Cui Dongshan said softly, "The highest is to tomorrow's moon, the highest is to the deep rivers and lakes, and I live in hiding to hold the Tao and raise the true spirit. You might as well watch the changes in the sky and wait for the time. Since it is a real dragon, the clouds and rains will flourish." Wang Zhuma was silent. Cui Dongshan suddenly smiled brightly and said, "You must be vigilant when it is transported to prosperity, and you must be calm when the situation is adverse." Of course, this sentence can be said in this way or it can be said in reverse order. Anyway, it sounds good. When the situation is difficult, you will be calm and it will naturally turn around from time to time and good things will happen again and again. Wang Zhu said, "Sect Master Cui likes chatting so much. Do you want to drink tea after dinner?" Cui Dongshan laughed and said, No, there will be more opportunities in the future. It's better to leave it first." Wang Zhu and his party walked away in the wind. Gong Yan smiled and said, "It's a bit chewy to talk about going up and down. It's rare for this Cui Dongshan not to say weird things." The corners of Wang Zhu's mouth twitched up half a smile, because he didn't say the original words. Under the eaves of the Taoist temple, Cui Dongshan was not in a hurry and reminded with a smile, "In the future when you get along with Li Ba, you can be polite in small things, but don't be accommodating in big things. This old guy has a bad temper. He won't go and fight back, so he won't scold him for nothing and he won't fight for nothing. Besides, I suspect that Wanyan Laojing once won over Li Ba. Although Li Ba refused, at least he didn't take the initiative to inform the Confucian temple. It was just a guess. Wanyan Laojing was dead and there was no proof. He couldn't arrest Li Ba and tortured him. Li Ba had already used some kind of lock. The mystery of the soul that closes the door or simply erases all this memory. Chao Qingqing, if there is such a thing, what do you think should be done with Li Ba? Although he did not do anything, if he reported the news to the Confucian temple, would Jinjiazi kill a lot of people? Then can we say that it was Li Ba who concealed this matter, and his inaction indirectly who killed those people? Wanyan Laojing's crime of indiscriminate murder, assuming it is 10, how much can Li Ba account for? Let's assume that you can have a 50% certainty, search Li Ba's spirit and ask the truth. Will you do it? If you are hesitant in 50%, what about 80% and 100% certainty? Cui Wei suddenly became nervous. And he was just an outsider who wasn't being questioned. Chao Qingqing said, "If I were Wanyan Laojing and I mentioned this matter secretly with Li Ba at the time, as long as I was rejected, or if I felt that Li Ba just agreed with his mouth, he would choose to be false and reproach, and Li Ba's memory would be erased on the spot and everything would be erased. Traces, Wanyan Laojing is the Ascension realm, Li Ba is just a jade, so even if the latter wants to inform the Confucian temple, he can't do it." "Junior brother Chao, of course you are not Wanyan Laojing." Cui Dongshan smiled and said, "We have all read the Book of Sages. It seems that real readers like to embarrass themselves the most." Chao Qingqing suddenly turned sideways, took a few steps back and faced Cui Dongshan, bowing his head in a bow. Not only was Cui Wei confused, but Cui Dongshan also felt strange. "What?" Chao Qingqing never stood up straight, lowered his head and muttered, "Some senior brothers set up a questioning situation for junior brothers. Sir can endure it, I can't endure it, so I ask senior brother Cui to be merciful." Cui Dongshan stomped his feet and said, "It's like talking nonsense, it's like a slap in the face. You can feel your conscience and talk about it. Little senior brother is the kind of person who can't understand clearly." Chao Qingqing got up and said with a smile, "I don't care about this anyway. I will quickly tell the husband about this matter, so I think it is a rainy day. If there is a day I will feel bad and senior brother don't want to run." Cui Dongshan was so angry that his teeth were itching and he pointed his finger at this junior brother. The conscience of heaven and earth, the sun and the moon can be learned. Little senior brother has no such thoughts at all. You are better, you have to create something out of nothing and then complain to Mr. Are you in a situation like this? Is there a junior brother like you in the world? How did you get that sea-crossing talisman in your sleeve that was still warm? You have to go and grab it for you, so you just repay your senior brother? You have to be heart to heart. Chao Qingqing said solemnly. Senior brother Cui said it himself, walk in adversity calmly. Cui Dongshan froze for a while, shook his sleeves and shouted, Cui Zhonglu, stop me now or I will pass on the arts on behalf of my teacher. Cui Wei was not stupid and said with a smile, the family affairs between your brothers and sisters, I am an outsider so as not to be a person inside and outside. Cui Dongshan's eyes rolled sharply, he stood on tiptoe and put his arms around Chao Qingqing's shoulder. Senior brother Chao, don't complain, sincerely, I'm begging you as a little brother and now Mr. The most proud student, sir, is not one of them. If you come out like this again it is inappropriate, really inappropriate. Chao Qingqing, don't forget, now I am the master of the sect, you are just the master of Jingxing Peak. Even if you don't talk about the friendship between the brothers and sisters, don't make a mistake, I have the true biography of Mr. Take Revenge. Brother Chao. It's okay, have pity on me. When my husband finds out about this he will really beat me into a pig's head. The problem is that I am wronged. Master Chao, little ancestor, do you really want me to kneel on the ground for you? How many times do you kowtow? Cui Wei, don't watch the show, hurry up, step aside and come back when I finish kowtowing. Of course Chao Qingqing wouldn't really let senior brother Cui do this. He supported his arm with both hands and promised with a smile, I definitely won't complain. Cui Dongshan was suspicious and said, I don't believe it, I have to swear. Chao Qingqing smiled and said, that's fine. Cui Dongshan quickly grabbed Chao Qingqing's arm with his backhand. Little brother is joking, you can't trust anyone but you can't trust Chao junior brother. It's time for Mr. to go to his hometown. After Chao Qingqing walked out of the Taoist temple he looked at the green mountains and green waters in the early spring season in the distance outside the mountain, and suddenly said, Brother Cui, it seems that whenever it snows on our Luobao mountain, it is always whiter than other places, and when the snow melts, it melts more than other places. Slow. Cui Dongshan was relieved and hummed. Knowing the implication of Chao Qingqing's junior and senior brother, it means a certain state of mind of their husband. To outsiders the snow-covered mountains are beautiful, but the hardships hidden under the beautiful scenery may be known to him, Cui Dongshan and Chao Qingqing, but no one knows how much hardships there are. How helpless life is, the pain of suffering in vain, the pain of unbearable suffering, it is hard to endure. For a lifetime it seems that drinking is not drunk and drinking tea does not feel bitter without returning to the sweet. What should I say? Chao Qingqing said softly, it's difficult to travel at night and it's not difficult to keep your head down. I'm afraid that when you look up, you will be surrounded by suspicious eyes like ghost fires, and rumors will be like a raging flood. Cui Dongshan hugged the back of his head with both hands and said with a smile, we encourage each other. Whether it is complaining or self-improvement, Chao Qingqing is qualified to say these words. How many young people leave their hometown without looking back? Some are ambitious and refuse to look back. But there are also some people who are only teenagers and dare not look back at their childhood. Cui Dongshan was silent for a moment, then turned his head and said with a face full of grievances, Junior brother Chao, you better swear, otherwise the younger brother will not be able to sleep. It's not that Chao Qingqing can't be trusted, but that Cui Dongshan can't trust certain styles of his own culture. Chao Qingqing smiled and said, Senior brother Cui is boring to chat like this. Cui Dongshan raised one hand, hooked his fingers towards the sky and muttered dong dong dong, rumbling. There was a thunderous sound in the clear sky. Cui Dongshan squinted at the scorching sun. The sun is hanging in the sky, teaching people not to look straight for a long time. It is said that the sun is the gathering of countless hearts.